Chapter 3610. Putting aside the matter of exchanging minds, anyone with a normal IQ would know how to choose 16 pieces of spiritual jades for one small spiritual jade. Meng Jueguang thought that he had finally achieved his goal. However, what Lin Yi said next almost made him spit out a mouthful of blood. Not exchanging. F***CK. Still not exchanging? Are you F***king crazy? Before Meng Jueguang could speak, Meng Tong had already jumped to his feet. 16 pieces of spiritual jades for one small spiritual jade, and he was still hesitating. This Lin Yi was simply crazy. Shut up! Meng Jueguang glared at him fiercely. Then he turned to Lin Yi and said, "Why don't you want exchange? Don't tell me that Junior Lin Yi doesn't trust me." Lin Yi looked at him playfully and said lightly, 16 pieces of spiritual jades for one small spiritual jade. Even a fool can see that there is something wrong with it. So why should I exchange? Perhaps this small spiritual jade of mine is special, and its value is far more than 16 pieces? Hey, I took care of you and gave you benefits. Not only did you not appreciate it, but you also think that you are a rare commodity? After Meng Jueguang reacted, he immediately burst into laughter and said disdainfully, "Don't indulge in fantasy, kid. Apart from the small size of your small spiritual jade, there is nothing special about it. If it wasn't for me taking care of you, your small spiritual jade would at most be worth half a piece of spiritual jade. You want it to be more than 16 pieces? What a fool's dream! Since there is nothing special about it, why do you still want to exchange so many spiritual jades with me? Could it be that your spiritual jades are worthless?" Lin Yi asked in reply. In fact, in the few days that he had obtained the small spiritual jade, apart from its size, there was nothing different about it from other spiritual jades. However, if someone said that there was nothing fishy about it, Lin Yi would definitely not believe it. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Meng Jueguang's complexion suddenly changed, and he said righteously, "Heaven Stage Island strictly forbids the trade of scrap jade in the market. Not to mention that junior apprentice brother Lin Yi has already mined for 2 days, so you should know the situation of Spirit Jade Hall. Waste jades have always been piled up in the mine to continue to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Not a single piece is allowed to be released. How could I possibly have so many waste jades in my hands?" Lin Yi looked at him noncommittally. Although what Meng Jueguang said was not a lie, it was not entirely true. At most, it could only be used to deceive newcomers. It was true that Heaven Stage Island forbade trading with scrap jade, but it was the same as counterfeit money in the secular world. It could be banned on the surface, but it was impossible to completely stop the transactions in private. Of course, for cultivators, it was very easy to distinguish good jade and waste jade. Therefore, the success rate of using waste jade to pass off as pearls was not high. Therefore, under normal circumstances, people would consume all the spiritual energy in the spiritual jade and would not deliberately waste spiritual energy to leave behind waste jade. Therefore, for the vast majority of people, it was normal to have 1 or 2 pieces of waste jade that had not been used up, but it was very rare to have accumulated as many as 16 pieces. It was just that it was not very possible for others. But for Meng Jueguang, who deliberately wanted to cheat Lin Yi, it was not impossible. Moreover, he had a wide network in Spirit Jade Hall. It was not difficult to get a few pieces of waste jade. Afraid that Lin Yi would continue to ask questions and expose himself, Meng Jueguang quickly dispelled his doubts and said, "Forget it, lest you be suspicious. I'll tell you the truth. The reason why I spent so much money to exchange for your little spiritual jade, in addition to you agreeing to exchange the mine, is mainly because I was entrusted by someone to use your spiritual jade to make a jade carving." Jade carving? Lin Yi was stunned. This kind of thing was very common in the secular world. However, although the spiritual jade was also of excellent quality, because it was filled with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, its quality was rather hard. Using it to make a jade carving should not be easy. Yes, you also know that spiritual jade, full of spiritual energy, is very hard, and it is very difficult to cut it. However, if the spiritual energy inside is consumed, the quality of the jade will decline. Therefore, if you want to use spiritual jade to make a jade carving, you must use primitive spiritual jade of similar size. In the jade mine, these spirit jades all have their own meridians. Every time you mine a piece, its size is determined according to its original broken meridians. You can't smash it as big as you want. Therefore, small jades are more suitable for carving. Even an expert at the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment would find it difficult to completely cut a large one. Meng Jueguang glanced at Lin Yi and continued. After a while, it will be the birthday of the only granddaughter of Soaring Sky Pavilion Master. Our Blue Cloud Pavilion Elder, Zhao's grandson, Zhao Yu, wants to find someone to carve a personal jade rabbit as a birthday gift. Therefore, he has been looking for people to collect spiritual jades the size of eggs. Now he has come to me. I thought that you happened to have such a small spiritual jade, so I wanted to exchange with you. Now you know the cause and effect. Lin Yi nodded slightly. This explanation did not seem to be empty talk. After all, apart from the small size of his spiritual jade, there was nothing special about it. Apart from using it to make jade carvings, it did not have much use. However, from another point of view, Xiao Hongkai and Xiao Ran's jades were not big either. Wouldn't it be easier for him to threaten them? Why did he need to find a troublemaker like him? Therefore, Lin Yi still did not believe him. Seeing this, Meng Jueguang quickly struck while the iron was hot and said, "This kind of small spiritual jade is actually useless in the hand, and although this size is rare, as long as you go out and ask around, you will be able to find it. Senior brother, I spent so much money to buy this piece of yours. This is completely taking care of you. Again, if you miss this opportunity, there will be no shop like this again. If you are not willing, I will turn around and find someone else without a second word." Lin Yi pondered for a moment, then said, "You want to exchange this spiritual jade of mine?" "Yes, I want 30 pieces." Meng Jueguang listened to the first half of the sentence with some joy, but after hearing the second half, he was immediately shocked and angry. Beside him, Meng Tong could not help but jump and said, "F*CK, you bastard, you are raising the price." Meng Jueguang hesitated for a moment, then said, 17 pieces, no more." "Lin Yi, you have to think carefully. You are not the only one who has a spiritual jade. Don't go too far." 28. Lin Yi said faintly, 18 pieces. If it was any other time, Meng Jueguang would not have fallen out with him, but at least he would have left in a huff. However, seeing that his plan was about to succeed, he could not bear to waste all his previous efforts. So he gritted his teeth and continued to increase the price. 26 pieces. Lin Yi continued to say with a straight face, and looking at his posture, he seemed to be very interested in continuing to waste time. Chapter 36:11. He hesitated for a moment, then threw the spiritual jades into the black bag with 16 pieces of spiritual jades, placed it on the stone table beside him, and pushed it towards Lin Yi, saying, 20 pieces, not a single piece more. Either you nod your head and make a deal, or forget it. Do as you see fit. Then forget it. Lin Yi looked at the other party with a playful look, then turned his head and walked away. Anyway, even if he did not make a deal, there was no loss for him. In the future, he could continue to mine in the 10th mining area, keep the spiritual jades, and live as usual. Even if Meng Jueguang asked Meng Tong to monitor him, it would only be for a while. To monitor him for 3 months, Meng Tong would have to stop cultivating and also forget about the spiritual jades. He was willing, but Meng Tong himself was not. Damn, this was a full 20 pieces of spiritual jades, and he just said he did not want it. This guy was really a free and easy bachelor. Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong were both stunned. When Lin Yi was about to walk back to the cave residence, Mang Jueguang suddenly reacted, and with a helpless expression he shouted, 25 pieces. Lin Yi smiled slightly, stopped, and turned back. Deal. Seeing Mang Jueguang take out another 5 pieces of spiritual jades from his sleeve and put them in the bag, Lin Yi then took out his own small spiritual jade. However, when it was time to make the exchange, Mang Jueguang suddenly took back the bag of spiritual jades and placed a piece of paper on the stone table. He pouted at Lin Yi and said, "Since it's a deal, then sign it first." Lin Yi glanced at it. This was the exclusive mining area contract of Spirit Jade Hall. In order to not let him go back on his word, this eldest senior brother had made full preparations. As long as he signed it, even if he went back on his word later, he would not be able to not change the mining area. Hee, isn't it just digging a hole for me to jump into? This act is quite decent. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. He didn't say any nonsense and directly signed the contract. Only then did Mang Jueguang let go of the black bag and took the little spirit jade from Lin Yi. In that case, many thanks for senior brother Meng's care. Lin Yi smiled and carried a heavy bag of 25 pieces of spirit jades. He turned around and left. He watched as Lin Yi walked back into the cave. Only then did Mang Jueguang and Meng Tong looked at each other and let out a long breath. This kid is really not a fuel-efficient lamp. It's really not easy to fool him once. Fortunately, I brought so many waste jades in case of accidents. Otherwise, it would really be hard to get off the tiger. This bag of spirit jades that he gave to Lin Yi were all waste jades that he brought out from Spirit Jade Hall through his connections. It was for the sake of tricking Lin Yi. Otherwise, how would he be so generous to give way to Lin Yi? Hee, that kid is still complacent and thinks that he has taken advantage of it. In fact, he is a downright idiot. When he finds out that these are all waste jades, I want to see what kind of wonderful expression he will have tomorrow. Meng Tong said with a smile at the side, "These 25 pieces of waste jade seem to be a lot, but in fact, they were all a thin layer of energy on the surface. The core in the middle was the waste jades. So even if there were a lot of them, if the energy added together was 1/10 of that egg-sized good spirit jade, one would have to burn incense to thank the gods." So at this moment, in the view of Mang Jueguang and Meng Tong, Lin Yi was absolutely cheated by the two of them this time. Not only did he foolishly agree to exchange the mining area, but he also took out a piece of small spirit jade. It was simply a double loss. To think that he still had a shrewd look when making the transaction. This kind of self-righteous idiot. It was simply the only one in the world. Returning to the cave, Lin Yi took out the 25 pieces of spirit jades and examined them one by one. He suddenly understood in his heart. It was the same as his previous guess. These 25 pieces were all waste jades with only a trace of spiritual qi. In fact, this was also a very normal thing, given his relationship with Mang Jueguang. Even if Mang Jueguang's story of searching for small spirit jades was true, such a good thing would never fall into Lin Yi's hands. 25 pieces of good spirit jade for a piece of low spirit jade. Lin Yi never believed in such a good thing. However, although Mang Jueguang used 25 pieces of waste jades to exchange for his own small spirit jade, it did seem to be a big loss. For Lin Yi, who was sitting in the space of the jade pendant, this was exactly what he wanted. Otherwise, he would not have foolishly agreed after guessing the other party's intentions. Since the space of the jade pendant could quickly charge the spirit jade, any piece of waste jades in Lin Yi's hands would be thoroughly good jades. Not to mention 25 pieces of waste jades for one. Even if it was 2 pieces of waste jades for one, it would still be a profit for him. What Lin Yi needed now was this kind of superficial waste jades. Compared to working hard every day in the mining area and only being able to steal 2 pieces of spirit jade, Mang Jueguang's plot to cheat him was simply a good person who delivered goods to his doorstep. 25 pieces of waste jades were equivalent to Lin Yi's results in less than half a month. It would be better if he did it a few more times. In contrast, the matter of changing the mining area was not worth mentioning. In any case, Lin Yi's previous good jades were not really dug out by luck. With the space of the jade pendant, this cheating artifact, he could dig out good jades wherever he went. Moreover, from the results of Meng Tong and Li Zhengming's daily mining, the 7th mining area not only produced good jades, but the probability of digging out a superficial waste jades was also significantly higher. In this way, as long as Lin Yi was familiar with the environment and the distribution of guards there, it would be easier to steal spirit jade than in the 10th mining area. On the morning of the 2nd day, Lin Yi went to Spirit Jade Hall to report as usual. He happened to meet Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong at the door, so he calmly stepped forward to greet them. "Good morning, Senior Brother Meng." "Good morning." Meng Jueguang carefully looked at Lin Yi's expression, but did not find any trace of unusual expression on his face. He could not help looking at Meng Tong in surprise. Could it be that this guy still did not find out the trick in those spirit jades? Because Meng Jueguang had already informed Dai Wuchang and the others, Lin Yi smoothly exchanged the pass token of the 7th mining area. Without saying a word, he entered the mine tunnel. From beginning to end, he did not say a word to these two people, and did not show any unusual behavior. Looking at this kid's reaction, it should be that he has not found out that the bag is full of waste jades. Otherwise, he absolutely would not be so calm. Meng Jueguang turned his head and muttered to Meng Tong, Previously looking at this guy's performance, I still felt that he was quite shrewd. It turns out that this is all a facade. A whole night passed, and he still hasn't found that bag of waste jades. Even a pig is not so slow, simply more stupid than a pig." Meng Tong gloated and laughed. Chapter 36:12. Then, he continued, "That's 25 pieces of spiritual jades. For ordinary people, it's like a windfall from the sky. It's just like what they say in the secular world, winning 5 million in the lottery. It's normal for him not to react overnight. What's more, the excuse I gave him yesterday was reasonable and it wasn't a lie. If he doesn't believe it, then he'll be crazy. That's true. We racked our brains to set such a trap for him. If this kid reacted so quickly, then he'd be letting down Cousin Joe's efforts." Meng Tong nodded in agreement. "Hey, maybe this kid will be like this for the next few days. He thought he'd become a local tycoon with 25 pieces of spiritual jades, but in the end he found out that it's just a pile of useless jade. Ha ha ha. The higher the expectation, the more miserable the fall. His expression will be wonderful then," Meng Jueguang said with some complacency. Ever since the first day the newbies reported in, he and Lin Yi had never gained any advantage in direct or indirect confrontations. On the contrary, it was him, the steward, who had been humiliated quite a bit. Even when Lin Yi was kicked to the 10th mining area by him, he still managed to make a name for himself in the end, making him lose all face. But this time, Lin Yi had truly been tricked by him. Not only did he change the mine, but he'd also lost a good piece of jade. He'd been tricked so badly that his face was covered in blood. For the steward, Meng Jueguang, playing with Lin Yi, this troublesome newcomer, was far more satisfying than cleaning up the other fence-sitters. This was the scene he had been looking forward to for a long time. If these two people knew that not only did they not cheat Lin Yi, but they even gave Lin Yi a big gift, it was really hard to know what expression they would have. Of course, as long as Lin Yi didn't say it himself, these two people would never know the truth for the rest of their lives. It was estimated that they would continue to be complacent. Walking along mine number 7, the environment was almost the same, even though it was a winding tunnel. However, Lin Yi could clearly feel the difference between this place and mine number 10. Not only was mine tunnel number 10 more remote and secluded than mine tunnel number 7, but there weren't as many people in mine tunnel number 10. Compared to mine tunnel number 10, where there was not a single living person to be seen, mine tunnel number 7 was quite lively. From time to time, they would see other people of the same trade. As a matter of fact, mines like mine number 7, which was ranked below average, had the highest number of people among all the mines. After all, he was a miner. In addition to pure newcomers like Lin Yi, the main group was the previous newcomers who had not successfully reached the foundation establishment stage in the welcoming pavilion. According to the rules, they could not directly join the 3 great pavilions. Instead, they could only work hard in places like the Spirit Jade Mine while seeking a breakthrough. Compared to the soaring pavilion with a deep background and the powerful mysterious pavilion, the group of grassroots, rogue cultivators from Blue Cloud Pavilion was more likely to fail to reach the foundation establishment stage. The number of laborers assigned to the mining areas was also higher. As for the mining areas ranked higher, although the jade production rate was higher, those areas were allocated to the Soaring Sky Pavilion and Profound Secrets Pavilion. Compared to the Clear Cloud Pavilion's Mining Area 7, the number of laborers assigned to them was naturally lower. After arriving at mine number 7, Lin Yi looked around and found an empty mine to start working. He didn't plan to steal the hidden spirit jades today. His main purpose was to scout and familiarize himself with the environment. After all, including the 25 pieces that Meng Jueguang had given him yesterday, Lin Yi now had a total of 31 pieces of spirit jades on hand. It was enough for him to buy several sets of alchemy ingredients. It could be said that he was not in urgent need of spirit jades in a short period of time, so he could take it slow and steady. While mining, Lin Yi kept an eye on his surroundings. Soon, he obtained several pieces of useful information. First, the strictness of the surveillance in mine number 7 far exceeded that in mine number 10. Although the 2 mining areas were about the same in terms of area, there were only 2 guards in total in mining area 10, while there were 10 guards in mining area 7. Not only were there fixed sentries, but there were also specialized patrols. It was such a dense surveillance. With such intensive surveillance, a normal heaven stage expert would not be able to do anything. To have such crooked thoughts was simply courting death. Second, there were a lot of people in mine number 7. In the huge mine number 7, there were dozens of scattered mining sites. Other than a few that no one paid attention to, there were at least 1 or 2 people mining. There were at least 1 or 2 people mining at each of the other mines. Some popular mines even had 4 or 5 people surrounding them. This was simply not digging for spirit jades, but snatching spirit jades. Third, the jade extraction rate in mine number 7 was indeed much higher than that of mine number 10. In less than an hour, Lin Yi had already dug out 6 pieces of spirit jades. 2 of them were pure, useless jades. Following the method of the people beside him, they were directly thrown into the empty space behind them. There would be specialized guards who would collect them. 3 of them were useless jades with thin spiritual energy. As for the last one, it was actually a good jade full of spiritual energy. This jade extraction speed was simply incomparable to the one in mine number 10 2 days ago. Lin Yi nodded secretly. Comparing people to people, one would die. It could be seen that Spirit Jade Hall's division of mining sites was very reasonable. As he was looking around, a loud noise suddenly came from the side. Lin Yi could not help but turn his head to look, and unexpectedly found a familiar face. Because the other Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers were all assigned to mine number 8 by Meng Jueguang, and Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong did not appear. Lin Yi did not recognize any of the dozens of people in mine number 7. There was only one exception, Li Jingming. From the first day until now, other than hugging Meng Jueguang's thigh, Li Jingming did not have any special performance. It felt like he was purely Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong's follower, and there was nothing outstanding about him. However, the impression this person gave Lin Yi was far from being transparent. On the contrary, this person was very scheming. If one had to say, he was much more difficult to deal with than a brainless guy like Meng Tong. However, this Li Jingming only catered to Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong from beginning to end, and never took the initiative to make things difficult for Lin Yi. As long as the well water did not interfere with the river water, Lin Yi could not be bothered to waste energy to pay attention to him. The loud noise just now came from where Li Jingming was. As for the surrounding people, whether they were guards or miners, they all turned a deaf ear to it, as if they were already used to it. Chapter 36:13. In the next moment, Lin Yi quickly understood why there was such a movement. It turned out that Li Jingming was not like the others who were mining honestly. Instead, he used the jade shovel in his hand as a weapon and attacked the mining spot with all his might, revealing his strength as a peak late-stage heaven stage. It's just mining. Do you have to be so exaggerated? Is this guy crazy? Lin, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. Although Li Jingming's posture looked awesome, after all, it was a peak late-stage heaven stage expert's full power. The problem was that the spirit jade was a hard existence that even a foundation establishment expert couldn't break. Even the other ores around it were extremely hard. Li Jingming looked like he was risking his life, but in fact, it was a waste of energy. It was far more efficient than using normal mining techniques. In Lin Yi's view, Li Jingming was definitely not a fool. After trying this kind of thing once or twice, it would be easy to come to a conclusion. However, to his surprise, after Li Jingming calmed down for a while, he immediately performed the same act again. It was as if he had some deep hatred for the mining spot. Once he recovered, he would attack with all his might. Could this guy really be sick? As soon as this thought appeared, it was eliminated by Lin Yi himself. No expert who could get to the heaven stage would be a real fool. Li Jingming must have a special intention for doing this deliberately. Could it be that he was using the mining time to practice some special martial arts? Lin Yi thoughtfully looked at the opponent up and down, but it didn't seem like it. This kind of deliberate feeling was more like he was showing off his peak, late, stage, heaven stage strength from time to time. However, he was just a peak, late stage heaven stage. Looking at the whole scene, including the guards and miners, this strength was probably at the bottom. What was there to show off? Could it be? Thinking of his own situation, Lin Yi suddenly thought of something and carefully observed Li Jingming like never before. Only then did he finally realize that the reason this guy kept bragging about his peak late stage heaven rank strength was to hide his strength. If it wasn't for this deliberate action that aroused Lin Yi's curiosity, even if Lin Yi had the ability to see through the strength of experts below the heaven rank great perfection, he might not have noticed that Li Jingming, who appeared to be at the peak of the heaven rank, was actually a heaven rank great perfection expert. In fact, if it wasn't for Lin Yi's habit of hiding his strength, others wouldn't even think in this direction. Who would have thought that he was a sky class late phase peak guy who was constantly showing off his strength? So it turned out to be a perfect heaven rank late phase peak. But why did this Li Jingming deliberately hide his strength? Lin, he was a little puzzled. The reason why he deliberately hid his early stage foundation establishment strength was because he was unfamiliar with this place after coming to Heaven Rank Island. Moreover, there were new and old enemies like Su Lingqiong, Meng Jueguang, and Kong Mingming. Hiding his strength was to allow himself to always maintain the initiative and not be tricked to death by these enemies. But after these days of observation, this Li Jingming was not like him, who was in the limelight. Instead, it could be said that he was a low-key and transparent figure. There were no enemies eyeing him covetously, and the strength of a heaven rank great perfection was not very outstanding among the newcomers in the welcome pavilion. Was there a need to hide his strength in this cultivation world where the strong were respected? But even if he was puzzled, it had nothing to do with him anyway. Lin Yi was not interested in meddling in other people's business. His current task was to familiarize himself with the mining area and then try to steal the hidden spirit jade. As for this Li Jingming, who cared why he hid his strength? Anyway, it was fine as long as he couldn't threaten him. Apart from this Li Jingming, there was another thing that made Lin Yi quite concerned. It had already been 2 hours since they started working. He did not see the figures of Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong. But after thinking about it, the corner of Lin Yi's mouth could not help but reveal a trace of a playful smile. These two people did everything possible to get him to the 7th mining area, but they did not appear for a long time. From the looks of it, they should be going to the 10th mining area. Maybe these two people wanted to find the secret of him digging up so many good jades in 2 consecutive days. Lin Yi could only say, "Take your time to look for it. If you can dig up good jades, you two are awesome." Not only is it awesome, it is really awesome. As a matter of fact, as Lin Yi expected, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong really went to the 10th mining area. Just like what Lin Yi had said to Lu Bianren and senior brother Kubai. Based on the summary of the situation 2 days ago, these two people had already determined that Lin Yi found a high-quality mining area in the 10th mining area with an extremely high jade yield rate, especially a high probability of producing good jades. In terms of quality, this mining area could completely suppress the 7th mining area. In fact, for a senior brother like Meng Jueguang who was in charge, digging up 8 or 10 pieces of good jades a day was nothing to make a fuss about. It was even more impossible for him to be tempted. But the problem was that this was the 10th mining area that was sparsely guarded. Although the jade production rate of the 7th mining area was not bad, the security was tight. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, even if he, Meng Jueguang, was more quick-witted, it would be hard for him to do anything. However, it was different in this dead mining area. With his connections in the Spirit Jade Hall, it was absolutely easy for him to do anything here. The reason why he did not have any ideas about this place before was purely because there was no good jade to be dug up here. But if he found a mining area with a quality that was not inferior to the 7th mining area, the significance would be completely different. As long as the operation was done well, Meng Jueguang was completely confident that he could manage this place into his personal spiritual jade mine. As long as he had a lot of spiritual jades, wouldn't it be just around the corner in the future? Of course, the top priority was to confirm that there was indeed a good mining area here. So after Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong arrived at the 10th mining area, they asked the guards carefully, and then went straight to the mining area where Lin Yi had dug before. What is this situation? What is Meng Jueguang, the supervisor of the Welcome Pavilion, doing here in this dead mining area? Could it be that this newbie named Meng Tong has offended him so much that he personally came here to supervise the work? Doesn't look like it. The two guards were confused. They were only responsible for providing the weighing account book as proof of comparison during the weighing. As for how many pieces of good jade and how many pieces of waste jade were produced, it had nothing to do with them. Moreover, the idea that there was no good jade in the 10th mining area had always been deeply rooted, so these two guards did not know that Lin Yi had handed in a total of 18 pieces of good jade 2 days ago. Chapter 36:14. Meng Tong had already prepared his jade shovel and was itching to try. Even if he really found a high-quality mine here, Meng Jueguang might not give him many spiritual jades in the future. However, Meng Jueguang was his biggest backer. As long as Meng Jueguang made a meteoric rise, his status would naturally rise as well. Even though Meng Tong's brain was not very bright, he still had this little bit of survival wisdom. Meng Tong waved his arms and dug with all his might. However, the reality was completely different from what he had imagined. After working hard for an hour, he only managed to dig out 2 pieces of spirit jade. Moreover, both of them were useless pieces of jade that only had the appearance of being of good quality. Meng Jueguang finally could not sit still anymore. This was a matter of great importance to his future. Ever since he deduced this conclusion, his ambition depended on this mine to be realized. Otherwise, he would not have tried so hard to replace Lin Yi. After all, if it was purely to punish Lin Yi, why would he change Lin Yi to mine number 7? The reason why he proposed this condition was only to entice Lin Yi to agree as soon as possible. But now, seeing that the jade extraction rate of this mine was far from what he had expected, Mang Jueguang was in a difficult situation. If he could not dig out any good jade no matter what, then the beautiful future that he had previously imagined was simply a daydream. Picking up the other spare jade shovel, Mang Jueguang no longer cared about the dignity of the senior in charge. He could not wait to personally go into action. Damn, what year is this? Even a guy like Mang Jueguang who knows how to put on airs has personally come to mind. The two guards in the distance saw this scene and could not help but be taken aback, dumbfounded. These two were also people from Blue Cloud Pavilion. In the past, they had also dealt with Mang Jueguang a few times. In front of these low-level guards of Spirit Jade Hall, Mang Jueguang, as the supervisor of the welcoming pavilion, had always been arrogant. They had never seen him act so close to the people. Today was really the day when the sun rose from the west. However, even if Mang Jueguang personally went into action, as the senior in charge, he did not see many good jades being dug out. Even if he could occasionally dig out a few pieces of spiritual jade after working hard for half a day, they were either trash jades that were obvious at a glance, or waste jades that had thin spiritual qi. As for good jades that were full of spiritual qi, even if he and Meng Tong did not give up and worked hard for a whole day, they still could not dig out a piece, until the bell of the mining area rang, under the greeting of the two guards. Only then did Mang Jueguang and Meng Tong came to a stop with their faces covered in dirt. Looking at the basket filled with less than 30 pieces of waste jades, the two simply wanted to cry but had no tears. What kind of joke was this? Lin Yi, that bastard, could dig out 8 or 10 pieces of good jade in 2 days. If it was the two of us, we worked hard for a whole day, but in the end, we could not even get a piece of good jade. This was way too freaking weird. You guys, you two must be lying to me. This is not the mine that Lin Yi was digging before, right? Mang Jueguang suddenly turned his head and stared fiercely at the two guards, flying into a rage out of humiliation. The two guards suddenly jumped in fright, not to mention that Mang Jueguang's strength was originally above them, just based on the other party's wide network in this Spirit Jade Hall. They could not afford to offend this guy. The two hurriedly distanced themselves. Senior Brother Meng, how can you say that? Lin, he was indeed digging for jade at this mine before. What's there to lie to you about? If there is even half a word of falsehood, may the heavens strike us with lightning. Really? Mang Jueguang frowned at the two dubiously. Strictly speaking, these two did not seem to have any reason to lie to him. Of course it's true. And Senior Brother Meng, you're also someone who has experienced it, which mine points have been abandoned for a long time, and which mine points have been mined recently. These are all things that can be seen at a glance. Our number 10 mine area only had Lin Yi recently. The two guards hurriedly explained. That's true. Mang Jueguang then reluctantly believed the words of the two. In the end, he began to doubt himself again. Could it be that there is actually good jade in these spirit jades that were dug out today, but I just made a mistake? The same mine area, the same mine point, Lin Yi could dig out so much good jade in 2 consecutive days, but if it was him and Meng Tong, they could not even dig out a piece of good jade after working for a whole day in vain. Rather than believing such a ridiculous fact, Mang Jueguang would rather deceive himself and others and believe that he had made a mistake. Let's go in hand in the work. The more Mang Jueguang thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Without a second word, he immediately called Meng Tong. They hurriedly set off on their return journey. The two of them passed through the long tunnel number 10. When they finally arrived at the handover site, they happened to meet Lin Yi, who had just come out of the tunnel number 7. Seeing the two of them sweating profusely, Lin Yi was slightly stunned, and then he greeted them with a faint smile. Damn, this guy can't be waiting here to make a fool of us, right? Thinking of what they had done 2 days ago, Mang Jueguang and Meng Tong's hearts suddenly skipped a beat. However, the two of them really misunderstood Lin Yi. Although Lin Yi had long expected that Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong would not dig out any good jade, even so, he did not have the leisure to wait here and watch them make a fool of themselves. The reason why they met here was purely that Lin Yi wanted to observe the work and rest schedule of the guards in the 7th mine. Therefore, he deliberately stayed in the mine for a while. This was just a complete coincidence. However, as the saying goes, ex person, ex heart. Even if it was really a coincidence, in the eyes of Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, it was definitely a coincidence deliberately created by Lin Yi. This bastard was holding back his strength to see the two of them make a fool of themselves. However, even if the two of them held back their strength to not let Lin Yi see them make a fool of themselves, Lin Yi finally saw it as expected. There was nothing much to say about the weighing. The key was the quality inspection result. Meng Tong, 0 good jade, 27 pieces of waste jade. This sentence completely sentenced their previous luck on the road to death. Both Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong's expressions suddenly became dull, and they did not come back to their senses for a long time. To be able to dig out 27 pieces of waste jade in the 10th mine, the harvest is not bad. Congratulations. At the side, Lin Yi nodded and smiled faintly. In fact, he did not know that today, even Meng Jueguang personally went to the mine. According to the rhythm of his previous 2 days, which was less than 20 pieces of waste jade, Meng Tong's 27 pieces were indeed not bad. Therefore, his blessings were really from the heart. Chapter 36:15. What are you so proud of? You've only been lucky for 2 days. You won't be able to dig out any good jade in the future. Meng Tong couldn't help but say angrily, if it had always been in the 10th mine, then it would be hard to say. But now. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. At this time the quality inspector reported, Lin Yi 7 pieces of good jade, 23 pieces of useless jade. Meng Tong couldn't help but feel suffocated. Even Meng Jueguang, who was next to him, looked at him with a speechless expression as if he was looking at an idiot. Meng Tong had already been transferred to the 7th mining area. How could he not dig up good jade? Saying such stupid words without thinking was simply asking for a slap in the face. Are the two of you going to continue working hard in the 10th mine tomorrow? Let me give you a friendly reminder. I've already taken all the luck from the 10th mine, and it'll be hard to get any good jade. Lin Yi said with a smile that wasn't quite a smile on his face. He turned around and left, ignoring the two. F***CK. This bastard's arrogance knows no bounds. Meng Tong looked at Lin Yi's back and gritted his teeth. What do you mean by taking away all the luck in the 10th mine? He's just a country bumpkin from the secular world, so what? Although Meng Jueguang was also furious, he forcefully suppressed his anger and said thoughtfully, what does this kid mean by saying that on purpose? Is he afraid that we'll continue to dig in the 10th mine and we'll dig out some good jade? Yes, that must be it. Meng Tong's eyes lit up when he heard that. He said, excitedly, this guy must be afraid that we'll dig out some good jade. That's why he said that on purpose to make us retreat. 9th cousin is really smart. This bastard is 2F** king cunning. It seems like that's the case. Even if it's a high-quality mine, it's normal to have a shortage of good jade. As long as we continue to dig tomorrow, we'll definitely dig out some good jade. Chapter 36:16. This time, it was Li Jingming who was stunned. Since when did Lin Yi become so docile and modest? According to his tough style of talking back to people like Su Lingchong and Meng Jueguang, it should be normal for him to find trouble with me at this time. Why did he become a coward without saying anything? However, despite his doubts, Li Jingming could not help but let out a sigh of relief. He had witnessed Lin Yi's strength on the first day he came to the welcome pavilion. He was able to defeat Meng Tong in one move, so he was definitely not easy to deal with. If Lin Yi really insisted on finding trouble with him, unless he was willing to be beaten into a pig's head, The fact that he had hidden his strength would be exposed. The loss outweighed the gain. Giving up the high-quality mining spot that Li Zhengming had occupied, Lin Yi randomly found a slightly remote, uninhabited mining spot. Although it was not in the corner, it did not attract as much attention as before. As long as he was a little careful, it would be enough to ensure a safe operation. However, just as Lin Yi was about to put down the basket, someone suddenly cut in line and rushed in front of him. He stared at Lin Yi with an unfriendly face and said, "Kid, this is the mining spot that I have my eyes on. Do you want to compete with me?" However, just as Lin Yi was about to put down the basket, someone suddenly cut in line and rushed in front of him. He stared at Lin Yi with an unfriendly face and said, "Kid, this is the mining spot that I have my eyes on. Do you want to compete with me?" Lin Yi frowned slightly. This person was one of the many former rookies who dug for jade in the 7th mining area. Because he deliberately observed the environment yesterday, Lin Yi had some impression of these unfamiliar faces. However, in his memory, this person was not at his current mining spot yesterday. However, Lin Yi soon found that something was wrong. Every time he walked to a mining spot, there would always be someone rushing in front of him. It should be known that in order to facilitate his operation, these mining spots were relatively remote mining spots with fewer people. And according to his observation yesterday, there was originally no one there. It felt as if everyone in the mining area was deliberately targeting him. Could it be that Meng Jueguang and his partner had sent someone to annoy him because they couldn't find any jade in the 10th mining area? Thinking about Li Zhengming's previous actions, Lin Yi quickly guessed the whole story. These people really listened to Meng Jueguang's instructions, so they deliberately ganged up on him. Not only Li Zhengming, but everyone else here was also Meng Jueguang's lackeys. Meng Jueguang was an experienced manager of the Welcome Pavilion. Not only this batch of newcomers like Lin Yi, even these previous batch of newcomers present all more or less bore his imprint. Moreover, he had extensive connections in the Spirit Jade Hall. These people would naturally do their utmost to curry favor with him in order to be able to get rid of these dark days as soon as possible. What's more, squeezing out Lin Yi was a completely trivial matter, although in the mining area there was no hard and fast rule that only one person could dig for jade in a mining area. Encountering this kind of situation where others snatched a mining area, even if Lin Yi couldn't directly stop it, he could also completely stay and not leave. In this way, the other party also couldn't do anything. It was impossible for them to rashly attack Lin Yi just to snatch a mining area. Under the watchful eyes of so many Foundation establishment stage guards, making a move without permission was simply courting death. He would be pinned with the charge of a mining riot. Even if he was killed on the spot, there was no way to explain it. But if he really shared a mining area with others, then it would be completely different from Lin Yi's original intention of hiding in peace. Not only would the efficiency of digging jade be inevitably affected, but more importantly, this was equivalent to having one more person closely monitoring him. Lin Yi simply couldn't think of stealing any spirit jade anymore. So facing this kind of situation, Lin Yi went against his previous strong attitude and actually chose to retreat again and again. So much so that in the end he was forced to a mining area in the furthest corner, and finally no one came to disturb him. This was the most run-down mining area in the entire 7th mining area. Not only was the jade production rate far lower than other mining areas, but it also seemed that no one had mined here for a long time. What exactly did this unlucky newbie do? He was actually bullied by a group of trash who failed to reach the Foundation establishment stage, and he didn't even dare to fart. Isn't he too weak? Hey, I heard that it was Meng Jueguang who called for it. This kid didn't even have eyes to offend a person like Meng Jueguang. He really deserved to be unlucky. The mining area he found hasn't been used for a few years, right? Can he still dig out jade? Who cares if he can dig out jade or not? Anyway, it has nothing to do with us. That mining area is so remote, I even find it difficult to turn around and take a look. It's good that he can't dig out jade. We don't have to go back and forth. The group of guards looked at this scene and sighed. Every one of them looked like they were watching a good show, but they didn't have the slightest intention of interfering. They were assigned to guard the mining area, and they were bored to death every day, so they liked to watch this kind of harmless show. Of course, if the scale went too far, such as not even leaving the last mining area for Linny, or if someone directly made a move, then they would have to step in. After discussing for a while, the group of guards quickly shifted their attention away from Lin-Yi. Because the mining area was so remote, even the guard closest to Lin-Yi was at least 40 to 50 steps away from Lin-Yi. Lin-Yi wouldn't be able to notice any small movements, which was exactly what Lin-Yi wanted. In this way, there would be no problem at all if he continued to operate like he did in the 10th mining area. While digging for jade, he smoothly replaced the pillar with the beam when the guards weren't paying attention. Lin-Yi couldn't help but laugh secretly. Although Meng Jueguang was his enemy when he recalled everything that had happened before, this guy was simply a benefactor in his life. Not only did he give me the cave abode, the spiritual jade, and the mining area, he even helped me when I encountered a little problem. If this was in the secular world, I should really give this guy a few good guy cards. Lin-Yi was in a good mood because everything was going smoothly, but Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, who were rooted in the 10th mining area, were not in such a good mood. Not only were they not happy, but they were actually extremely bad. In the same mining area, the same mining spot, Meng Jueguang also personally went to work. However, after he and Meng Tong worked for a whole day, the result was the same as yesterday, nothing. They did dig out a few pieces of waste jade, but there was still no good jade. Chapter 36:17. Damn it! Why isn't there a single piece of good jade? Is it really like what that brat said? Is he the only one who can dig out good jade in this dead mining area? This is too strange. Meng Jueguang couldn't help but cry out. After 2 days without any results, even with Meng Jueguang's shrewdness, he finally began to lose his cool. Ninth cousin, is it possible that there is no good jade in this dead mining area at all? That brat Lin-Yi was just lucky enough to dig out a few pieces, and all the good jade in this mining area has been dug out by him? Meng Tong was dejected, scratching his head and muttering, "Your words have enlightened me. If there is really good jade in this mining area, then it is impossible that he is the only one who can find it and we can't." Meng Jueguang nodded thoughtfully and said, "We have been busy for 2 days without any results. Maybe there really is no good jade left here. This mining area is not the kind of high-quality mining area that we previously speculated. There are only a few pieces of good jade here, and that brat Lin-Yi has picked them up. Then what should we do? Are we still going to dig tomorrow?" Meng Tong looked at Meng Jueguang eagerly. He had worked hard for 2 days in a row, but not even a single piece of good jade had entered his account. He was about to go crazy. Meng Jueguang was a senior steward, so he might not care about this small reward. But he, Meng Tong, was just a newcomer. Instead of wasting his time here, it was better to return to mine number 7 as soon as possible. Even if he could earn half a piece of spirit jade as a reward, it would still be a good thing. Meng Jueguang shook his head and said, "But what if this is really a high-quality mining area? We just happened to hit a relatively thick fault. Maybe we can dig out good jade tomorrow. If we give up so easily, wouldn't it be a big loss?" Worried about the gains and losses, Meng Jueguang had subconsciously fallen into a very typical gambler's mentality. He was definitely not willing to continue wasting his time here, but he was also not willing to give up just like that. He was afraid that he would lose the opportunity to obtain such good quality spiritual jades so close to him. But what if there is no good jade? Meng Tong cried with a bitter face. Of course, he also hoped to dig out good jade. But if he continued to waste time without any results, he was the one who would suffer a loss. When Meng Jueguang threw Lin-Yi to the 10th mining area, didn't he want to waste time here? Now Lin-Yi was swapped to the 7th mining area. while Meng Tong, the loyal little brother, was thrown to the dead mining area to suffer. If only we could find out if there is good jade here. Meng Tong could not help muttering. He really did not want to continue wasting time here. His words made Meng Jueguang have a flash of inspiration. He patted his head and said, "Yes. We can find the exploration experts of Lingyu Hall to take a look. Whether there is good jade in this dead mining area, we can find out by letting them explore again. It's really good to look." Meng Tong was stunned, and then looked at Meng Jueguang with a strange face and said, "Ninth cousin, why didn't you say so earlier? Didn't you work hard these 2 days in vain?" That was then, and this is now. What do you know?" Meng Jueguang could not help but reprimand him with a red face. In fact, it was not that he did not think of this move. The main thing was that he thought that after discovering a good quality mine, he could make a fortune by himself. If he hired the exploration experts of Lingyu Hall, once they really found a good quality mine, even if he did not report it, he would at least have a share of the profits. This was obviously not in line with Meng Jueguang's interests. It was just that, after working hard for 2 days, they could not even dig up a piece of good jade. When it was difficult to get down, it was not a bad idea to find the exploration experts. Even if they had to share some of the profits with the other party, it was better than the two of them continuing to work blindly like headless flies. After making up his mind, Meng Jueguang immediately left the mining area. These years, due to the network of connections he had built up, he knew one of the exploration experts of Lingyu Hall. But the other party was also a steward-level figure of Lingyu Hall. He was not someone that Meng Jueguang could order to come and go at his beck and call. He planned to first make friends with the other party overnight, so that he could ask the other party to come and help tomorrow. As for Meng Tong, he was sent away by Meng Jueguang to hand over the work with a sullen face, digging up a pile of waste jade, but not even a piece of good jade. It was enough that Lin Yi bumped into such a shameful thing yesterday. If it happened again, where would he, Meng Jueguang, the steward, put his old face? But what made Meng Tong happy was that, under his deliberate dawdling and the fact that the 10th mining area was very far away, by the time he handed over the work, almost all the people in the mining area had left. Lin Yi would not be so bored as to specifically wait here to see him make a fool of himself. So he escaped the disaster. Early the next morning, Meng Jueguang could not wait to invite the exploration expert he found to the 10th dead mining area. Along the way, the exploration expert could not help but ask, curiously, "Old Meng, I am puzzled. What is there to explore in a dead mining area like the 10th mining area where even birds don't shit? Isn't it a waste of time to ask me to come?" "Senior Brother Ma, I originally thought so, but a few days ago there was a newcomer in our Blue Cloud Pavilion who dug out 8 or 10 pieces of good jade in 2 consecutive days. So, I felt that there might be something fishy here." Meng Jueguang explained. The exploration expert called Senior Brother Ma had a distracted look at first, but when he heard this, he was immediately stunned. He dug out so much good jade in 2 consecutive days? Could it be that he accidentally stumbled upon a high-quality ore spot? Senior Brother Ma is indeed an expert. You hit the nail on the head. I think so too. So I specially asked Senior Brother Ma to make a trip. Meng Jueguang nodded. As the two talked, they arrived at the 10th mining area. After listening to Meng Jueguang's words, Senior Brother Ma no longer perfunctorily and began to explore seriously. After all, for an exploration expert like him, if he could find good jade in the 10th mining area and report it to Spirit Jade Hall, it would be a real great contribution. Under Meng Jueguang's expectant face, Senior Brother Ma busied himself for a while and soon came up with a result. With a sullen face, he said, "There is no such high-quality mining area, Old Meng. It is similar to the results of the previous regular exploration. The proportion of spiritual jade in the 10th mining area does not exceed 10%, and the concentration of spiritual qi is far from enough. In other words, even if there is 10% of spiritual jade, It is basically waste jade with thin spiritual qi. It is unlikely that there will be any good jade. Chapter 36:18. You don't believe me? Senior Brother Ma's face was not good, but due to his friendship with Meng Jueguang in the past, he still patiently explored the mining site alone, and then slightly surprised. What, did you find a good jade? Meng Jueguang asked hurriedly, and Meng Tong, who was behind him, also looked expectant. The proportion of spiritual jades in this mining site is a little more than other places. It should be about 15%, and the concentration of spiritual qi is also a lot higher. Senior Brother Ma pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, but it is still far below the average level. Even if good jade can be found in this place, it is at most 30 or 40 pieces. There is not much value at all. Only 30 or 40 pieces. The face of Meng Jueguang, who was full of expectations, suddenly collapsed. This was completely different from the high-quality mining site he had expected. Yes, this is still an optimistic estimate. In fact, if we want to dig out these 30 or 40 pieces of good jade, we don't know how much effort it will take. It will take at least 2 or 3 months, Senior Brother Ma said resolutely. Damn, so I really shot myself in the foot and have been busy for 2 days in vain? Meng Jueguang whispered to himself. But he did not have the slightest doubt about Senior Brother Ma's judgment. After all, the other party was an exploration expert specially supported by Lin Yuhao, and he had the absolute right to speak in this regard. Since he had come to a conclusion, then it would certainly not be wrong. I say, old Meng, you are also the #1 figure in the Welcome Pavilion. It is better to be a little more steady. Next time, don't pull me over because of some newbie who got lucky once. It is simply a waste of time. Senior Brother Ma complained a few words of dissatisfaction, and Meng Jueguang had to nod again and again, respectfully sending off the exploration expert. After sending off Senior Brother Ma, in the #10 mining area, there were only Meng Jueguang, Meng Tong, and the 2 board guards in the distance. Ninth cousin, what should we do now? There is no need to waste time here, right? Meng Tong asked. According to Senior Brother Ma, although there were still 30 to 40 pieces of good jade in the mine, it would take at least 2 to 3 months of hard work to dig them out. On average, it was less than 1 piece a day. It was completely incomparable to the 7th mine. Meng Jueguang nodded dejectedly. Indeed, there's no need to waste any more time. This mining area #10 is really a trap. I must have been blinded by greed for a moment to be bewitched by this evil fellow Lin Yi. It's a waste of energy to come here. Instead, he's been able to comfortably mine in mine #7 for 2 days. Although Meng Jueguang had specifically informed the people in mining area #7 to pressure Lin Yi, it did not change the fact that Lin Yi was staying in mining area #7. Even if it was the most worthless mine in mining area #7, it was still far better than the desolate mining area #10. Thinking that Lin Yi was now comfortably staying in mining area #7, Meng Tong gnashed his teeth in hatred. Meng Tong gritted his teeth in anger. That was his territory, and now it was taken over by this bastard. Cousin Jiu, let's kick that bastard Lin Yi back. Let's just let him suffocate in mine #10. Meng Tong gritted his teeth and said, Cousin Jill, let's kick Lin Yi back. Indeed, we must quickly find a way to kick this fellow back. Otherwise, it will be too easy for him. Meng Jueguang nodded reluctantly. Then he felt a little awkward. But how to make him agree to exchange? This is another problem. This fellow has tasted the sweetness in mining area #7. He certainly doesn't want to come back to this desolate mining area #10. Even if Meng Jueguang had a deep network in Spirit Jade Hall, the rules of Spirit Jade Hall were still there. If someone wanted to exchange a mining area, they must sign the contract in person. Just like when he asked Lin Yi to exchange to mining area #7, he tried every possible way to entice Lin Yi to sign the contract on the spot. Now he wanted to exchange Lin Yi back. He had to find a way to make Lin Yi sign the contract. Otherwise, if Lin Yi did not agree, even if Meng Jueguang found Dai Wuchang to complete the formalities, it would be useless. After all, the other party was not the kind of previous newcomer who failed to build his foundation and had no human rights. Under the premise that there was no special reason, even if it was Meng Jueguang, the big senior brother in charge, there was no way to force Lin Yi on this matter. Meng Tong frowned and thought for a moment. Ninth cousin, why don't we give him another 25 pieces of waste jade? You're an idiot. Meng Jueguang did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why did he have such an idiot cousin? He rolled his eyes and scolded. Do you think Lin Yi is as stupid as you? Is it not enough that he was tricked once before? Will he be tricked again now? Hearing Meng Jueguang's words, Meng Tong suddenly felt that he was a bit stupid. He could only say weakly, Then what should we do? If Lin Yi doesn't agree, then won't he stay in mining area number 7 and not be able to drive him away? It's easy to invite the devil in, but hard to send him away. Meng Jueguang scratched his head helplessly. 2 days ago, when he was trying to lure Lin Yi to mining area number 7, he was full of expectations that he would be able to find high-quality ores in mining area number 10 and make a fortune. In the end, he did not expect that not only would he not find any good jade, but he had also wasted 2 days. Now he did not know how to kick Lin Yi back. He had really lifted a rock and dropped it on his own feet. In fact, it was fine if he could not kick Lin Yi back to mining area number 10. As long as he let Meng Tong go back to mining area number 7, Meng Jueguang would not suffer any loss. It was nothing more than watching Lin Yi live comfortably in his heart. However, the problem now was that he had a very serious hidden worry. The most important reason why he was able to successfully exchange Lin Yi from mining area number 10 2 days ago was that Su Lingchong had nodded to young Master Su. Otherwise, no matter how good his relationship with Dai Wuchang was, Dai Wuchang would not dare to go against young Master Su's will. The reason why Su Lingchong had nodded back then was because he, Meng Jueguang, had solemnly promised Su Lingchong that he wouldn't let Su Lingchong off easily after finding out what was wrong with the 10th mine. As a result, not only did he not find out anything fishy about mining area number 10, but he was also stuck in mining area number 7 by Lin. If this matter fell into young Master Su's ears, then Meng Jueguang would not be able to bear the consequences. Thinking of this, driving Lin Yi back to mining area number 10 was no longer a dispensable action to vent his anger, but a death mission that must be completed, because this was not only a personal grudge of Meng Jueguang, but also related to young Master Su's face. Chapter 36:19. He couldn't think of a way himself. And as for Meng Tong, that brainless idiot, he naturally couldn't count on him. The two of them walked out of mine number 10 with frowns on their faces. Meng Jueguang was just about to find Dai Wuchang to exchange a contract for mine number 7 for Meng Tong when he unexpectedly saw 2 familiar figures at the door, Kong Mingming and Zhong Pingliang. These 2 weren't only disciples of Soaring Pavilion, but they were also Su Lingchong's direct subordinates. They could be considered to be in the limelight among all the newcomers, especially Kong Mingming. Under young Master Su's special care, he had almost locked onto the position of the newcomer deacon. According to Meng Jueguang's observation, this person was quite scheming. Recently, he had been running to Jade's spirit hall very frequently, presumably also thinking about the spirit jades in the mine. Meng Jueguang suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Right, these 2 were also Lin Yi's sworn enemies, and there was a deep hatred in the secular world. If he could ask them to help him deal with Lin Yi, they should be more than willing. Perhaps they knew Lin Yi better and might have some good ideas. Thinking of this, Meng Jueguang hurriedly stepped forward and greeted, "Junior Brother Kong, Junior Brother Zhong, I didn't expect to meet you 2 here. What a coincidence." "Yo, if it isn't Senior Brother Meng." Kong Mingming and Zhong Pingliang looked at each other and responded with a smile. Although the disciples of the Soaring Sky Pavilion naturally looked down on the people of the Clear Cloud Pavilion, Meng Jueguang was still the senior brother in charge of the Welcoming Pavilion, and his subordinate was also in charge of Lin Yi. Su Lingchong, the young master of the Su family, seemed to have some admiration for him, and so Kong Xiaoming wanted to make friends with him. As for Zhong Pingliang, he would follow whatever Kong Mingming did, determined not to fall behind. The few of them exchanged greetings, and Meng Jueguang immediately asked, "Junior brothers, are you preparing to go to the mines?" "Not bad. Newbies like us aren't as free as you, senior brother Meng. Other than digging for spirit jades, there are no other good ways," Kong Mingming replied with a smile. "Huh, junior brother Kong, your words are too modest. Not only are you two disciples of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, but you are also young Master Su's most valued subordinates. Even if you go down to the mines, it will definitely be the first mining area. Digging up 30 or 40 pieces of good jade a day is an easy thing to do. Even a senior brother like me is somewhat envious of you. If you still call yourself a little newbie, then it will be a bit unreasonable." Meng Jueguang's words were just a compliment, but Meng Tong, who was next to him, couldn't hide the envy in his eyes as he looked at the two of them. What did it mean to dig up 30 or 40 pieces of good jade a day? This meant that a day's worth of work was equivalent to 5 days of work for him. They could get a spirit jade for 3 to 4 days. It was really infuriating. Not at all. After noticing Meng Tong's envious gaze, Kong Ming looked humble, but he was actually quite proud of himself. It could be seen that it was the right decision to cling onto Su Lingchong's thigh when they first teleported to this island. Otherwise, if they were sent to a place like Blue Cloud Pavilion, working hard for a day and only getting 5 to 6 pieces of jade, that would be really miserable. Of course, if they were targeted like Lin Yi, it would be even more miserable. But if Kong Mingming knew that he, a key newbie in Mine 1, could only earn 1 piece of spirit jade after working hard for 3 to 4 days, and Lin Yi could steal at least 2 pieces of spirit jade any day, with almost no risk at all, would he be jealous to death? Of course, according to Kong Mingming's natural disposition of liking to take shortcuts. Although his current excellent environment was already enviable, he himself would not be satisfied with honestly digging for jade. Therefore, a few days ago, he dragged Su Lingchong around to build up his network so that he could find an opportunity to fill his pockets after building up his network. This was in line with his nature. It was just that Spirit Jade Hall's supervision was strict. Even if he clung onto Su Lingchong, this thick thigh, it would not be easy for Kong Mingming to achieve this step. One must know that even Meng Jueguang, this senior with deep qualifications, did not dare to rashly lay hands on good jade with his current network. He could only wait for the opportunity to embezzle some scrap jade. Apart from being able to exchange these scrap jade for some meager remuneration, even if he managed to find a way to bring it out, it could at most be used to cheat others, like how he cheated Lin Yi 2 days ago. Apart from that, there was not much use for it. Senior apprentice brother Meng, 2 days ago you told young master Su that you wanted to investigate the fishy matter of Lin Yi digging up good jade in the 10th dead mining area. I wonder if there's any progress? Kong Mingming turned around and asked. Although digging up 8 or 10 pieces of good jade a day was already pretty miserable in his eyes, if he could make Lin Yi unable to dig up a single piece of good jade, wouldn't that be even more satisfying? Meng Jueguang was secretly delighted in his heart. He was just waiting for the other party to say this. Immediately he let out a long sigh and said, "Sigh, don't mention it. Both junior apprentice brothers also know that I kicked this Lin Yi to the 10th dead mining area, which birds don't even shit on, in order to vent the anger of young Master Su and my 2 junior apprentice brothers. In the end, I didn't expect him to dig up good jade in 2 consecutive days. Isn't this going against our original intention of punishing him? Not to mention anything else. Just based on the grudge between him and my 2 junior apprentice brothers. We can't let him go on like this. Although they knew that this guy was deliberately trying to make himself look good, Kong Mingming and Meng Jueguang still nodded. Then, they listened to Meng Jueguang continue. So I set up a trap and tricked him to come to the 7th mining area, wanting to investigate the fishy matter in the 10th mining area. In the end, I invited the exploration experts of Lingyu Hall to take a look and found out that there's no good jade in the 10th mining area at all. There's nothing fishy about it either. He was purely lucky 2 days ago. If we let him stay there any longer, no matter how lucky he is, he definitely won't be able to dig up any good jade. Isn't that just right? Just kick him back to the 10th mining area, right? Don't you think so, junior apprentice brother Zhong? Kong Mingming's eyes couldn't help but light up. He was holding back his strength to see Lin Yi suffer. If he could make Lin Yi unable to dig up any good jade for a few months, that would be perfect. Zhong Pingliang, who was standing at the side, nodded slightly but didn't say anything. He was Lin Yi's spy. At a time like this, he naturally couldn't speak carelessly. Otherwise, one word could help Lin Yi, but it could also make things worse. Sigh, I originally had the same idea as my 2 junior apprentice brothers. Meng Jueguang smiled bitterly. But the problem is, if we don't think of a way to make Lin Yi sign the contract himself, we can't do anything if he insists on staying in the 7th mining area and refuses to leave. Chapter 36:20. Meng Jueguang proudly replied, That's because I found an excuse to give him 25 pieces of useless jade in exchange for the only small spiritual jade that still had spiritual qi in his possession. Useless jade? What does this guy need useless jade for? How could he trade a good jade full of energy for useless jade? It's not like you can eat it. Did a donkey kick him in the head? Kong Mingming couldn't help but wonder. Even Zhong Pingliang was a little stunned. The spiritual energy inside the jade wastelands was too thin. It was far from being comparable to the cultivation dwelling allocated to the new disciples in the welcoming pavilion. Even if it was a waste disciple from the clear cloud pavilion, they wouldn't be interested in the spiritual energy inside the jade wastelands. Meng Jueguang smiled proudly. Ha ha, don't be surprised, brothers. When I gave him the spiritual jade, he didn't know that it was useless jade. He thought that the 25 pieces were good jade. 1 small spiritual jade for 25 good jades. This big pie fell from the sky and knocked him out. I tricked him into signing the contract on the spot. Even if he found out that it was useless jade, he couldn't go back on his word. I see. So Lin Yi was tricked by Senior Meng. Kong Xiaoming understood the situation and chuckled. He was happy to see Lin Yi being humiliated like this, but Zhong Pingliang didn't think so. Among everyone present, he was the first to know Lin Yi and understood him the best. As far as he was concerned, Boss Lin Yi's miraculous abilities had been proven time and time again in the common world. He wasn't the kind of guy who would be tricked easily. It was already good enough that he didn't trick others. But how could others trick him? He, Zhong Pingliang, was suffering from the pain of shooting himself in the foot. Even his kidneys were gone. As a result, being tricked into exchanging good jade for useless jade wasn't something that would happen to Lin Yi, unless he wanted the jade and was willing to be tricked. He didn't know what Lin Yi wanted the jade for, but he had a feeling that it would be of great use to his boss Lin Yi. Meng Jueguang and the others thought that they tricked boss Lin Yi, but they might have fallen into Lin Yi's trap. They laughed happily for a while. Kong Mingming continued, Then how do we kick Lin Yi back to mine number 10? Do you have any ideas, Senior Meng? We can't just let him roam around mine number 7 forever, can we? I'm also having a headache over this problem. Meng Tong just said that he would use another 25 pieces of jade to trick Lin Yi back. I told you that Lin Yi isn't an idiot. He wouldn't fall for it again. You two are smart people. What do you think? Meng Jueguang looked at Kong Mingming and Zhong Pingliang. Indeed, it's only been 2 days and he wants to trick Lin Yi again. Does he think Lin Yi is an idiot, or does he think he's an idiot? Kong Mingming sneered as he glanced at Meng Tong. The disdain in his eyes was self-evident. On the other hand, Meng Tong's face flushed red from his words. Zhong Pingliang suddenly interrupted. I actually think that Meng Tong's suggestion might work. Oh, why do you say that, Junior Zhong? Meng Jueguang and Kong Mingming asked at the same time. Meng Tong, on the other hand, looked at Zhong Pingliang gratefully, thanking him for helping him out. Wow, this Senior Zhong is so nice. I need to get closer to him in the future and discuss things with him. Zhong Pingliang was different from Meng Tong. Like Kong Mingming, he was recruited by Su Lingchong personally. He wasn't an idiot either. If the same words came out of Meng Tong's mouth, people would only laugh at him. But if it came out of Zhong Pingliang's mouth, Meng Jueguang and Kong Mingming would have to think about it carefully. What the two senior brothers said is true. With Lin Yi's shrewdness, he wouldn't fall for the same trick 2 days later. Zhong Pingliang analyzed. But that's on the premise that he'd already realized that he'd been tricked. What if he still hasn't realized that the 25 pieces of jade senior brother Meng gave him were useless? Is that possible? Meng Jueguang and Kong Mingming looked at each other. Zhong Pingliang's words made sense. If Lin Yi still hadn't realized that the spirit jade was useless, then he could do it again. There was a chance of success. Pingliang saw that the two were still hesitating, so he continued. According to what Meng's senior brother said, it's only been 2 days since Lin Yi took the 25 jade pieces, and he's been mining in the mines for the past 2 days, so he hasn't had much time to use the spirit jades. If he doesn't use them, then he wouldn't have realized that they're all useless jades. From what I see, it's very likely that he didn't notice them. But even if he's mining in the day, he'll still need the spirit jade when he goes back to train at night, right? Meng Jueguang thought that Zhong Pingliang's words made sense, but he was still confused. Zhong Pingliang shook his head. I don't dare to boast about others, but I dare say that I don't know Lin Yi as well as the other senior brothers. This guy looks normal on the outside, but he's actually very arrogant. He thinks that he's a genius that only appears once in 10,000 years, so he's used to playing tricks when he's in the common world. He's never trained as hard as we do, so I'm willing to bet that he hasn't been training seriously these 2 days. So he doesn't need the spirit jade. Kong Xiaoming nodded from the side. I agree with what Junior Zhong said. Senior brother Meng, you might not know this, but Lin Yi is actually an alchemist in the common world. His current strength is basically increased by elixirs. People like him who are used to elixirs wouldn't bother with daily training. I think it's very likely that he's trying to save up spirit jades to buy elixirs. As for training, someone like him who's addicted to pills probably doesn't even know how to use spirit jade to train, right? Ha ha ha. The others burst into laughter. Seeing Meng Jueguang's convinced expression, Zhong Pingliang was secretly happy. He was sure that Boss Lin Yi needed the useless jade, so he purposely led these people to give Lin Yi jade again. If it was only him, Meng Jueguang would still be a little skeptical, but he did think that even Kong Mingming would help him. Now, Meng Jueguang had no choice but to believe it. Chapter 36:21. You're right, Meng Jueguang recalled. It was indeed like this. He couldn't help but nod. Meng Shixiang and Meng Tong Shixiang should have seen Lin Yi these past 2 days, right? Did he get angry after he realized he was tricked? Pingliang continued to strike while the iron was hot. He was willing to bet that even if Boss Lin Yi realized that the 25 pieces were all useless jade, he wouldn't show it on his face. Meng Jueguang paused and recalled carefully with Meng Tong. They both said excitedly, yeah, I didn't see him yesterday, but I did see him the day before yesterday. It was just like what Brother Zhong, senior brother, said. The kid behaved normally, as if he didn't realize those were all useless jade. That's it. So we can follow Meng Tong Shixiang's suggestion and prepare a pile of useless jade and send it to him. Pin Liang laughed. Mang Jueguang was about to nod, but then he hesitated and said, "But what if he has already found out that it is a waste jade? After all, what we said was just speculation. That kid has always been good at acting. Maybe he's just swallowing his pride and acting normally these past 2 days? If that's the case, wouldn't it be a waste to give him the useless jade?" This guy wasn't easy to fool. Pin Liang curled his lips and thought about it. That's easy. Let Meng Tong Shixiang find a chance to get information from him. Won't he know after a little testing? But then again, it's just a pile of useless jade. Even if it doesn't work, you won't lose much. Meng Shixiang. You're right, Brother Zhong. Meng Jueguang nodded. The other party was giving him advice. If he still didn't nod, it would be a little embarrassing. It made it seem like he couldn't afford the useless jade in front of Kong Mingming and Pin Liang. He didn't want to lose face. And to be honest, Pin Liang's suggestion sounded very reliable. It was worth a try. After the discussion, Meng Jueguang arranged for Meng Tong to find Lin Yi. Meng Tong was going back to mine number 7 anyway. It was on the way. When he arrived at mine number 7, Meng Tong saw Li Jingming working in the middle of the mine. He couldn't help but feel angry. Meng Jueguang had purposely left this mining spot for him. Now that he had wasted 2 days of effort in dead mine number 10, Li Jingming, this scheming brat, had taken advantage of him. Of course he was unhappy. Although Meng Jueguang hinted to Li Jingming to put pressure on Lin Yi, but Meng Tong automatically ignored it. Besides, when he framed Lin Yi last time, Li Jingming slandered him for hiding spirit jade and even searched him. He was rebelling. Although he couldn't do anything because of Meng Jueguang, he still remembered it. Meng Tong was a very arrogant and selfish person. So as far as he was concerned, Li Jingming had ill intentions, and he had the intention to replace him. He felt that although Li Jingming followed Meng Jueguang, the best resources would still be given to Meng Tong first. The rest of the resources would go to him. If he could find a chance to replace Meng Tong, the benefits would be obvious. Humph. Just you wait, I'll deal with you. Meng Tong spat angrily. He then looked around for Lin Yi. After all, his current task was to find Lin Yi and get some words out of him. He was still clear about his priorities. When he found Lin Yi, Meng Tong's bad mood was immediately swept away. He couldn't help but gloat. Lin Yi's mine was located in the most remote corner. It was the kind that no one had ever paid attention to before. There were a few empty mines on the side. According to past experience, the jade production rate was better than Lin Yi's mine. However, Lin Yi didn't have any intention of moving out. In fact, if he wanted to move out, someone would immediately rush over to snatch his mine until he gave up. This was Meng Jueguang's order. Lin Yi could only stay in the worst mine in the entire mining area number 7 to mine. However, Lin Yi didn't care about this at all. He didn't need others to go through much trouble. He just settled down in the most remote and worst mine. He had the attitude of Lu Bianren, who was happy to live a poor life. In fact, even if others wanted him to come out, he himself didn't want to come out. In this most remote mine, he could completely avoid the sight of the guards. How great was that? Pretentious newbie, are you busy? Meng Tong gloated for a while and then walked towards Lin Yi. If it was someone else who came to the mining area and didn't work hard, they would definitely be severely punished by the guards. However, Meng Tong was specially taken care of by Meng Jueguang. Therefore, the guards turned a blind eye to this. If you have something to say it quickly. Don't disturb me. Lin Yi was about to put a piece of waste jade into the space of the jade pendant. Seeing Meng Tong walking over, he had to stop halfway. He was obviously driven to the worst mine, but he still had a temper. However, it was normal for him to have a temper. Who didn't have a temper here? Meng Tong couldn't help but curl his lips. He organized his words and said, "Nothing much. I just wanted to ask you. Cousin Jiao gave you so many spiritual jades 2 days ago. Did you use them? Are you testing me to see if I found any waste jade or not? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He pretended to be cautious and said, No, they are still there. Why? Do you want to go back on your word? Do you want to take them back from me? Let me tell you, I won't go back to mining area number 10. Don't expect me to return these spiritual jades to you. Hey, why are you so excited? We don't want to take them back. We're just casually asking. Meng Tong made up his mind. After coming to a conclusion, he immediately ignored Lin Yi and turned to leave. Looking at this guy's rash back, Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Meng Jueguang actually sent this guy with a screw loose to find excuses from him. He really didn't know whether to say that Meng Jueguang was careless or that he had a hole in his brain. This was all thanks to his cooperation. Otherwise, if it was someone else, just based on Meng Tong's rash words, even if they didn't have any suspicions before, they would have become suspicious now. However, why did Meng Jueguang send this guy to test me? Lin Yi fell into deep thought. After a while, he shook his head with a playful expression. Could it be that these two people found out that they couldn't dig up any good jade in mining area number 10? So, they are thinking of some way to kick me back? Lin Yi's guess was soon confirmed. When he returned to his cave residence after work, he saw Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong waiting for him. Chapter 36-22. Junior brother Lin Yi, I plan to transfer you back to the number 10 mining area. Please sign this mining area contract. Meng Jueguang went straight to the point. Why should I? Lin Yi glanced at him, a smile that wasn't quite a smile on his face. I'm having a good time in the 7th mining area, and I can get good jade with no effort at all. Why would I go back to a dead mining area like that? Do I look sick to you, senior brother Meng? Or are you sick to your stomach? I knew you wouldn't want to, but it's okay. I will make you agree. Meng Jueguang signaled Meng Tong to put the bag of spiritual jades on the stone table and said, In 3 months you can only earn 6 or 7 pieces of spiritual jades at most in the number 7 mining area. But if you agree to change mining areas, I can give you 10 pieces right now. What do you think? 10 pieces of spiritual jades? It's just to get me back to the number 10 mining area. Do you think it's worth it to pay such a high price, senior brother Meng? Lin Yi suddenly laughed, then pretended to be suspicious and said, There's no such thing as a free lunch. Senior brother Meng, are you guys digging a hole for me to jump into? Uft. Junior brother Lin Yi, you can't overestimate yourself. Do you think it's worth it to pay such a high price to dig a hole for you? Meng Jueguang sneered disdainfully and explained after a pause, To tell you the truth, young Master Su found out that I transferred you to the number 7 mining area. Young Master Su is very angry, so I can only think of a way to exchange you back. I have no other choice but to pay such a price. Now you have no more doubts, right? Haha, he obviously wants to use a few pieces of useless jade to trick me back to the dead mining area. This guy really knows how to make a good lie. However, although he clearly saw through the other party's little trick, Lin Yi was very willing to cooperate. Since the other party was in a hurry to give him spiritual jades, how could he refuse? Super good people like Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong were very rare in this world. Lin Yi was really happy to meet them as soon as he arrived at Heaven Island. All right then, since Senior Meng has put it this way, it would be inappropriate for me to refuse. However, Senior Meng, don't you think that 10 pieces of spirit jades is a little too little? Lin Yi pretended to be in a difficult position and kept Meng Jueguang in suspense. 10 yuan is already a lot. Meng Jueguang said, pretending to be in deep thought. F***CK, you're raising the price again. When Meng Tong saw that Lin Yi had taken the bait, he was actually secretly pleased. As for wasting a few more pieces of waste jade, it was not a problem at all in his eyes. However, on the surface, he deliberately cooperated with Meng Jueguang. He pretended to be very dissatisfied and said, 10 pieces of spirit jades is already a lot, far more than your mining reward, okay? Don't push your luck. I can't go any higher. This is already a sky-high price. These two guys are quite into it. Lin Yi laughed in his heart, but on the surface he put on a straight face and pretended to be angry and said, Senior Meng, you have to speak with a conscience. You just asked me to change mine 2 days ago, and today you want me to change mine back. From the beginning to the end, it was you who tormented me, your junior, and I didn't even have a word of complaint. Since Senior Meng feels that you are at a disadvantage. All right then, I won't change mine anymore, okay? Seeing that Lin Yi wanted to leave, Meng Jueguang hurriedly stopped him and said, Junior Meng Lin Yi, don't be in such a hurry. I didn't say that it can't go higher than 10 pieces of spirit jades, right? That's what Meng Tong said. That's it. I'll give you 2 more pieces. 12 pieces of spirit jades. 12 pieces? Lin Yi looked at Meng Jueguang, raised his eyebrows, and said, Senior Meng, 2 days ago you asked me to change mine number 10 to mine number 7, and even gave me 25 pieces of spirit jades. Now you're kicking me from mine number 7 back to mine number 10. Don't you think this price is a little too shabby? How can that be the same? The 25 pieces of spirit jades from before were to exchange for your little spirit jade, not to let you change mine. Meng Jueguang paused for a moment and seemed to have made a big decision. But considering that Junior Meng Lin Yi is a newcomer, it's really not easy for you to be assigned to mine number 10. How about this? I'll take a step back and give you 15 pieces of spirit jades. 30 pieces. If you're short even 1 piece, don't come looking for me again. Lin Yi said resolutely. If this was a normal transaction, the other party would have fallen out with him long ago. However, he knew what Meng Jueguang was thinking. In order to get him to take the bait, Meng Jueguang would definitely not be stingy with these 10 pieces of useless spirit jades. At this time, if he didn't seize the opportunity to extort more spirit jades, it would be the end of the world. As expected, after Meng Jueguang's expression turned ugly for a while, he finally gritted his teeth and agreed. All right, in order to appease young Master Su's anger, I'll accept this loss. 25 pieces. That's the limit I can bear. Sign the contract for the mine. All right. Lin Yi smiled and nodded. Without any delay, he signed the contract, counted the number of spirit jades, and turned to leave. In fact, although Lin Yi knew that it was useless spirit jades, he knew when to stop. One had to know that he was taking good spirit jades. If he insisted on a high amount, it would seem that the spirit jades were not valuable. After waiting for Lin Yi to leave, Meng Jueguang, who was deliberately suppressing his anger, changed his expression and sneered. This kid is really good at bargaining. I reckon that he used to go to the market to buy vegetables in the secular world. His ability to haggle is top-notch. It's a pity that he's smart, but he doesn't have any great wisdom to be able to fall into the same trap twice in a row. With this kind of IQ, he can still come to our Heaven Stage Island. He's really a rare genius. He who asked him to meet our 9th cousin. In my opinion, it wouldn't be strange for him to fall into this trap a few more times. This kid can't do anything. He only has a bit of luck. Previously, he was actually able to dig out good spirit jades in the 10th dead mine. What the hell? But this time, after exchanging, I want to see if he can still dig out good spirit jades. Meng Tong said with a face full of expectation. That goes without saying. Just wait for a good show tomorrow. Meng Jueguang said with a face full of ridicule. Previously, the exploration experts had already sentenced the 10th mine to death. He was sure that even if Lin Yi's luck was heaven-defying, he wouldn't be able to dig out any good spirit jades when he returned to the 10th mine. Therefore, he couldn't wait to see Lin Yi's depressed and unlucky look. The next day, as soon as the handover bell rang, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong excitedly gathered the newcomers of the Blue Cloud Pavilion and sat around the handover site to watch the show. The newcomers looked at each other. They didn't know much about what happened in the past few days, but with the intentional spread of information by Meng Tong and Li Jingming, they more or less knew the gist of it. Chapter 36:23. However, what the third pavilion master could not do was easily accomplished by Meng Jueguang, the eldest senior brother in charge. With just a few words, he easily transferred Lin Yi to the coveted 7th mine. However, Lin Yi was really a good-for-nothing. Relying on the third pavilion master's support, not only did he not repay senior brother Meng's kindness, but he also bad-mouthed senior brother Meng after arriving at the 7th mine. In less than 2 days, he had angered everyone. Meng Shiro, in a fit of rage, he'd kicked Lin Yi back to the 10th mine, and the reason he'd called everyone here was to witness Lin Yi's first day back in the mines. They'd like to see if this arrogant idiot could still be as lucky as he was before. The newcomers could reach the heaven stage and above, so they were naturally all smart people. Regardless of the credibility of the rumor, they at least knew that Lin Yi's exchange of minds in the past 2 days was true, and that it was indeed Meng Jueguang who was behind the scenes. This was enough for them to draw a very important conclusion. Meng Jueguang, the eldest senior brother in charge, had the ability to summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Those who obeyed him would prosper, while those who defied him might not die, but they would definitely end up in a miserable state. Therefore, even if there were newcomers who were worried about being slapped in the face by Lin Yi, they still followed Meng Jueguang closely. Since senior brother Meng had asked them to watch Lin Yi, they would obediently watch. Anyway, they would not be the unlucky ones. After a while, under everyone's expectations, Lin Yi's figure finally appeared on the long 10th mine. Lin Yi was not surprised by the crowd's presence. He calmly weighed the jade as usual. Lin Yi 16 pieces of waste jade, 20 pieces of junk jade. When the quality inspection results were announced, Meng Jueguang and the others could not help but grin mockingly. The crowd was in an uproar. Even the other newcomers looked at Lin Yi with schadenfreude. Infuriate people, laugh at people without. This was the innate bad nature of these people. Lin Yi looked at the crowd calmly. He didn't steal any hidden spiritual jade today, so he didn't charge the waste jade he dug up. After all, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong had been busy in the number 10 mining area for 2 days, but they didn't find anything. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was able to dig up good jade as soon as he went back. This was a little strange. Therefore, in order to avoid suspicion, he decided to pretend for 2 days first. Moreover, he had other motives for doing so. Pretentious newbie, aren't you the legendary son of luck? Why isn't he lucky this time? Meng Tong hurriedly jumped out to mock him. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. He pretended to be surprised and said, "Oh, I understand. Don't tell me you didn't step on dog poop when you went out today. That's why you're so unlucky. How pitiful. Wahahaha." When the group of rookies heard this, they could not help but laugh even more wantonly. Meng Tong didn't seem like a smart person usually, but when his mouth started mocking people, he was quite good at it. In the end, Lin Yi did not fly into a rage out of humiliation like everyone imagined. Instead, he looked calmly at Meng Tong and said thoughtfully, "What you said reminds me. On the first day, I kicked you in the face, so my luck has been pretty good ever since. Could this be the dog poop luck you mentioned?" "Huh." Meng Tong was immediately stunned as he said in confusion, "What the hell are you saying? What has kicking my face got to do with dog poop luck?" At this moment, some of the rookies reacted. Wasn't this equivalent to saying that Meng Tong's face was dog poop? However, they did not dare to laugh even though they wanted to. They were hindered by Meng Jueguang's tyranny. They could only forcefully hold back their laughter as their entire bodies twitched on the spot. Meng Jueguang stared at the crowd with a livid expression before cursing with a black face. "He is indirectly calling you dog poop. You can't even tell from this. What a fool." "Haha, senior brother Meng is wise. You hit the nail on the head. Brother Meng Tong, why don't you find a chance to let me kick you again? I still want to have a few more rounds of dog poop luck. Lin Yi looked sincerely at Meng Tong. Holy sh asterisk t. You are the F asterisk asterisk king dog poop. You bastard, I'll fight it out with you. Meng Tong finally understood. Looking at those rookies who were covering their mouths and holding back their laughter, his face flushed red instantly. He rushed over in exasperation and was about to attack. Lin Yi looked at him quietly as he silently calculated in his heart. When the other party attacked him, he would immediately retaliate. This time, he would not let the other party have it as easy as last time. Even if he could not kill him directly, he would at least make him bedridden for a month, so that he would not continue to come to him and cause trouble in the future. But at the same time, Lin Yi also noticed that many guards around had already noticed the situation over here. Each of their eyes instantly revealed a frightening, murderous aura, as if they would pounce over it the next moment. Private fights were strictly prohibited in Spirit Jade Hall. Those who violated it would die. This was the #1 dead rule in Spirit Jade Hall. These guards were at least experts in the early stage of Foundation establishment. Any one of them could instantly behead Meng Tong. And looking at their posture, if Meng Tong pounced over again, these guards would really kill him. Meng Jueguang's heart suddenly thumped when he saw this. Although his connections in Spirit Jade Hall were not bad, it was limited to the stewards in charge of various affairs. As for these guards, he did not have any relationship with them. It was not that he did not want to make friends with them, but he did not dare to, because according to the rules of Spirit Jade Hall, all guards were strictly prohibited from contact with other people. Even these stewards in Spirit Jade Hall were not allowed. Once found out, it would be regarded as corruption and dereliction of duty. This was a serious crime that could cripple one's cultivation. So if these guards really made a move, he was afraid that he would not even have the chance to exonerate Meng Tong. Seeing this, he could only rush to stop Meng Tong before he started a private fight. Disgraceful thing. Still not going to scram to the side for me. Meng Jueguang angrily reprimanded. It was obviously a great opportunity to see Lin Yi make a fool of himself. But in the end, it was tormented by this brainless fool, and instead scared himself into a cold sweat. He really could not accomplish anything, but was good at spoiling things. Looking at the speed of Meng Jueguang's movement, just now, Lin Yi's eyelids could not help but twitch. It seemed that this steward's senior brother's strength was indeed not weak. At least his cultivation was at the peak of the early stage of Foundation establishment. Compared to the bitter senior brother, he was a notch stronger. Chapter 36:24. Senior Brother Meng, when you asked me to agree to change the mine yesterday, your tone was not like this. You changed your face too quickly, didn't you? Lin Yi pretended to be depressed and said, But I really have something to ask of you, Senior Brother Meng. This kid really wanted to ask of him? Meng Jueguang's heart was delighted, and he suddenly felt a sense of satisfaction. If it was any other newcomer who came to ask him, he might not feel any satisfaction. After all, this was a matter of course. But this person was Lin Yi, who had always been rebellious and refused to submit to him. This feeling was very different. The most satisfying thing in the world was to admire the face of the enemy when he was begging for mercy. Tell me, what do you want from me? Meng Jueguang's anger was suddenly swept away, and he deliberately put on airs. I want to take a day off tomorrow. I hope Senior Brother Meng can approve it. Lin Yi said. He and the other newcomers, although they had now signed the Spirit Jade Hall contract to mine here, and the stipulation was that they could not be absent for 3 months without reason. But before they became the miners of Spirit Jade Hall, their primary role was to welcome the newcomers of the new pavilion. Therefore, just like when the mining area was allocated, Meng Jueguang, as the big senior brother, could intervene in the management of the newcomers. As long as Meng Jueguang nodded his head, asking for a day or 2 off was a matter of a word. So this guy wanted to ask for leave. Meng Jueguang was enlightened, and immediately curled his lips and said, "What's the reason? Why should I approve your request for leave?" "Senior Brother Meng, as you can see, I worked hard all day, but couldn't dig out any good jade. My chest is a little tight, so I think I need to rest." Lin Yi deliberately pretended to be very depressed. "Huh, chest tightness? Looking at your expression, I thought you didn't take it to heart. It turns out that you also have times when your chest feels tight?" Meng Jueguang was instantly happy. Even Meng Tong, who was angry out of humiliation, was beaming with joy. From the first day they met Lin Yi, no matter how they tried to deal with him, Lin Yi always maintained a calm expression. Every time they saw this expression on his face, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong's mood was as bad as eating sh** tea, especially when their plan failed and they were tricked. But now, Lin Yi actually took the initiative to admit that he was depressed. This was simply an unprecedented victory. It was good to be depressed. "I'll make you depressed until you die." Meng Jueguang was suddenly in a good mood. He laughed and patted Lin Yi's shoulder, saying, "Originally, I couldn't approve this leave for you. After all, it will damage the image of our Blue Cloud Pavilion if people hear that you flinch when you encounter a little setback. But since you're so depressed, I'll be magnanimous and grant you a day off. If you really can't, it's okay to take a few more days. Anyway, you won't be able to dig a fart even if you come. Don't dig for a few days and die of depression. Then you'll be the first newcomer to die of depression in the history of the Heaven Stage, North Island." "Thank you, Senior Brother Meng." Lin Yi didn't care about the sarcasm in these words at all. He didn't look at the crowd anymore and turned to leave. "Hee, ninth cousin, look at how ugly this kid's smile is. It's like crying. Wahahaha." Meng Tong mocked and scrupulously behind him. Lin Yi's expression was actually no different from before, but at this moment, in the eyes of Meng Tong, it was as ugly as it could be. Previously, when he looked at this expression, he always felt that the other party was showing off. He even wanted to rush over and kick his face. But now, the more he looked at it, the more pleasing it was to his eyes. It made him feel happy. Meng Jueguang also smiled sarcastically. "This is called profound skill, understand? No matter how depressed you are, you must pretend to be calm and smile. Otherwise, how can you live up to the title of pretentious newcomer?" The newcomers on the side suddenly burst into laughter. Lin Yi was an extremely strong troublemaker from the first day. He was recognized to be above the group of ordinary newcomers. To be able to enjoy such a scene of him being defeated, this mood had to be described with one word: cool. Who asked you to show off? You deserve to be struck by lightning. Not to mention how happy this group of people were. Lin Yi didn't care about them at all. As for the so-called depressed mood, it was purely for them to see. The nature of it was no different from playing a monkey. One must know that Meng Jueguang, this super good person, had given him a total of 50 spiritual jades twice. How could he be depressed? The reason why he applied for leave from Meng Jueguang this time was naturally not because he wanted to slack off for a day, but because he wanted to make use of this opportunity to make a trip to the city square. After all, he had more than enough spiritual jades on hand, and he wanted to buy the 5 medicinal herbs required to refine the heavenly path golden pill first. If he delayed too long, the 5 medicinal herbs would be sold out, and that would be an awkward situation. Although the supply of the 5 medicinal herbs seemed to be quite large, it was better to be safe than sorry. The next morning, Lin Yi put on the 1,000-thread mask and went straight to the market. Due to Meng Jueguang's contribution, coupled with the spiritual jades that he had stolen from the mines these days, Lin Yi had already accumulated about 60 spiritual jades. Although this kind of wealth couldn't be said to be extravagant, it was definitely considered a big tycoon among the newcomers. And in a place like the market, when one's wallet was full, one would naturally have more confidence. After spending 8 spiritual jades to buy the 5 medicinal herbs that he had his eyes on, Lin Yi didn't immediately turn back. Instead, he planned to casually walk around the market. Since he was already resting today, there was plenty of time, so Lin Yi was in no hurry to return. Although he had walked around twice the last time he came, he didn't have many spiritual jades on hand. Many things were only seen from afar, and he didn't ask too much. But this time was different. He had more than 50 spiritual jades on hand, which was enough to buy a lot of things. Walking around the outer street and the middle street, although he saw a lot of interesting things, there were only a few that really caught Lin Yi's eye. In this kind of cultivator market, no matter what it was, it could generally be classified into the following 2 categories, either to assist in cultivation or to assist in combat. For Lin Yi, he had the space of the jade pendant, and he could refine his own pills. Therefore, these cultivation aids in the market basically didn't catch his eye. Looking at the entire outer street and the middle street, even the most valuable and effective cultivation aids were far less effective than Lin Yi's own space of the jade pendant, so there was naturally no need to buy them. Chapter 36:25. Today is the Murloc's birthday. School bell. 5 chapters exploded, and also pulled down the monthly votes for the new book, Ultimate Young Master Cultivator. Recently, everyone has been saying that the mining story is a bit long. The Murloc will shorten this part of the plot. Although it will waste a part of the stock manuscript, it doesn't matter. The Murloc can directly write the later trials and other interesting plots. The following plots are written by the Murloc every day, but he will not reduce the number of chapters. He will try to write a part of the manuscript in advance every morning and update it the next night. He will try not to make everyone wait because the update time is not fixed. Of course, after strolling through the entire outer street and middle street, there were still a few items that could catch Lin Yi's eye. However, the prices of these items were not low. They often cost dozens or even hundreds of spirit jades. For Lin Yi, although these things were a little useful, they were not particularly critical and important. They belonged to the category of buying or not buying. If Lin Yi had a huge sum of thousands of spirit jades, he might buy them. But now he would take a look first. After strolling through the outer street and middle street, Lin Yi originally planned to go back, but the situation in front of him made him stop unconsciously. That was the entrance to the inner street. Usually, idlers were not allowed to enter. Only the top-ranked inner disciples of the 3 pavilions were qualified to enter. The last time he came, it was deserted and looked extremely mysterious. But today, the flow of people was bustling inside. What surprised Lin Yi was that many of them were only masters in the early stage of foundation establishment, and the guards responsible for maintaining order did not stop them like last time. What is this situation? Lin Yi was stunned for a moment before he finally found a special sign that was different from the past at the entrance to the inner street. Inner street, open day. There was also a line of small words below. Masters above the early stage of foundation establishment can enter. After all, when he was in the secular world, he had been exposed to various commercial means. After Lin Yi stopped and thought for a moment, he quickly figured out the reason. The inner street was the most mysterious and highest street in the market square. The reason why there was a threshold for entry was that the inner street was the most mysterious street in the market square. The main purpose was to highlight their noble status and attract the most elite inner sect disciples of the 3 great pavilions. After all, this group of people had large amounts of spiritual jades on hand and belonged to the main group of high-end consumers. After the entry threshold was set in the inner street, others could not enter, but only they could. This in itself was a symbol of noble status. When this group of people's sense of superiority was satisfied, they were naturally more willing to come to the inner street to spend. In fact, the items that could be stored in the inner street had to be of a much higher quality than those in the outer street and middle street. Naturally, the price would be much more expensive. Those who had not reached the corresponding level would not be able to afford it. Thus, rather than wasting time with these low-level cultivators in the outer and middle streets, It would be better to gather them in the inner streets and create a threshold effect, specifically serving the most elite inner sect disciples of the three great pavilions. Therefore, from a purely commercial point of view, the inner street was equivalent to a super VIP in the market. Its existence was very reasonable and effective. However, any business method would have its drawbacks, and the existence of the inner streets was no exception. While the threshold effect attracted the elite disciples of the three great pavilions, the drawbacks of the inner streets were also extremely obvious. That was, its source of customers was naturally very small. There were only so many elite disciples of the three great pavilions, which meant that the market of the inner streets was naturally limited. This was obviously not a good thing for a commercial organization that strived to develop. After all, although 99% of the low-level cultivators in the outer and middle streets could not afford the items in the inner streets, there were always some exceptional potential customers. However, there were always some exceptional potential customers, such as those second-generation cultivators who were not very strong but had a large number of spiritual jades like the elite disciples of the three great pavilions. Therefore, the inner streets were open to the public. The most mysterious inner street of the market square was chosen one day a month to be opened to ordinary cultivators who did not meet the threshold. This way, it could attract more potential customers, and at the same time, it would not arouse the resentment of the elite disciples of the three great pavilions. In fact, the opening day of the inner streets every month would let more low-level cultivators truly understand the privileges they had and become even more envious of them. Therefore, the existence of the inner streets would not make the elite disciples of the three great pavilions feel that they were degraded. Instead, it would satisfy their sense of superiority, killing two birds with one stone. Sure enough, there was no time like the present. With such a rare opportunity to see the true face of the inner streets, Lin naturally would not let it go for nothing. Anyway, he had nothing to do. Maybe he could encounter some treasures he liked in the inner streets, or he could directly buy the last heart-devouring, exquisite grass needed to refine the heavenly golden pill in the inner streets. This was not impossible. Releasing the aura of an early-stage foundation establishment expert, the inner street guards only glanced at Lin and happily let him pass. Following the flow of people into the inner streets, Lin only took a look around and found that the inner streets were indeed very different from the outer streets and the middle streets. This could be clearly distinguished from the layout of the street and the structure of the shops. Simply put, the shops on the outer streets did not have a fixed layout at all. In fact, they were purely stalls. Although the middle streets were better, the nature was basically not much different from the farmers' markets in the secular world. However, the inner streets were very particular. At a glance, there were nearly 20 shops, each with its own independent pavilion. The layout was elegant and grand. At a glance, one could tell that it was a high-end place. According to the usual situation of the inner streets, the flow of customers was actually not large. If a shop could have 3 or 4 people enter at the same time, it would be considered a prosperous business. However, today's inner streets were obviously not in this category, not to mention 3 or 4. Based on the situation, perhaps even 30 or 40 people would not be able to stop them. Fortunately, these shops were big enough. Even with so many people pouring in, it didn't seem too crowded. Moreover, there were trained disciples in charge of receiving them. Thus, although the scene looked lively, it was still orderly and didn't cause any trouble. With great interest, Lin followed the flow of people and looked carefully at each shop. As he expected, the prices of the items in the inner streets were far higher than those in the outer and middle streets. In the outside world, an item worth a few dozen spirit jades was already considered a high price. As for an item worth more than 100 spirit jades, it was even rarer. However, in this inner street, any random item would start from a few dozen spirit jades. Lin followed the flow of people and looked at several shops. He almost did not see an item priced at less than 50 spirit jades. Instead, items priced at hundreds or even hundreds of spirit jades could be found everywhere. Sure enough, only after entering the inner street did one realize how poor one was. Originally, Lin Yi thought that although the amount of spirit jades he had on hand was not much, it was absolutely not a small amount. But now that he looked around, his mood suddenly became the same as the time when he carried a small piece of spirit jades to stroll around the outer and middle streets. He was embarrassed. Lin Yi had originally planned to buy something, but now he had no choice but to dispel this idea. This trip would be better for him to take a look and just treat it as an eye-opener. After all, even if he spent all the spirit jades he had on hand, he would not be able to buy anything decent. Chapter 36:26. The bigger the store, the better the items. Lin Yi had no reason to miss such a rare store, so he followed the flow of people and walked in. After entering the shop, Lin Yi quickly noticed the difference between this Hong Merchant Association and the other shops in the inner street. The decorations were more majestic, but that wasn't the main point. The main point was that the people who came here were wearing the symbol of the elite disciples of the 3 pavilions. The number of people who came here was far more than the other shops. In other words, even if today was not the opening day of the inner street, the Hong Merchant Association's business would be much more popular than the other stores. It was obvious that it had something special. North Sea Dragon Fish Bile. Price 588 spirit jades. Mysterious Water Drop. Price 649 spirit jades. Earth Snake Skin. Price 320 spirit jades. After scanning through a row of display cabinets, Lin Yi's horizons were already widened. These were all things that Lin Yi had never heard of in the secular world. Although there was no specific introduction to these items, just from the appearance, it was obvious that they were not ordinary items. Moreover, Lin Yi found that in this Hong Merchant Association, there was not a single item priced below 100 spirit jades. Not to mention the outer street and the middle street. Even the other stores in the inner street paled in comparison. They were almost not on the same level. No wonder it could attract so many elite disciples of the 3 pavilions. The Hong Merchant Association store was divided into 3 floors, arranged in a pyramid shape. The higher the floor, the smaller the space, and the number of items on display decreased. Of course, the price of each item on display increased by a lot. Some items were already priced at thousands of spirit jades. It was common sense that the items on the second floor were always better than those on the first floor. He went up to the second floor and took a quick look around. He did not intend to stay for too long. After all, due to his lack of money, it would be a waste of time to look at more items. As for the third floor, Lin Yi originally wanted to go up and broaden his horizons. However, he was stopped by the people from the Hong Merchant Association. The third floor was the Hong Merchant Association's VIP area. Only VIPs who had spent more than 1,000 spirit jades were qualified to enter. The inner street was already a VIP place in the market, and the Hong Merchant Association was one of the best stores in the inner street. Wouldn't the restricted third floor be a fighter jet among VIPs? Lin Yi secretly speculated that people who could enter here. He was already a big shot who could be ranked in the entire North Island of Heaven Stage Island. Although he was very curious about the items on the third floor, since they had set such a rule, Lin Yi could only suppress his curiosity for the time being and turn to go downstairs. However, at this moment, his heart suddenly palpitated, as if he had missed something important. Lin Yi wasn't sure what was going on when the ghost's voice sounded in his head. "Don't leave yet. Go take a look at the corner of the right shelf." Although it had been living in the jade space for some time, it had rarely taken the initiative to speak, unless it was something very important. Could it be that he had discovered some great treasure? With doubts in his heart, Lin Yi followed the ghost thing's instructions and quietly walked to the corner of the display. Because there were no eye-catching items, there were obviously fewer people here than in other places. At this moment, there was only one person standing next to Lin Yi. Judging by his attire, he should be an inner sect disciple of the soaring sky pavilion. Senior Ghost, you mean here? Lin Yi communicated with the ghost thing through his consciousness. Yes, this star ink stone is good stuff. Think of a way to get it, the ghost thing said. Star ink stone. Lin Yi looked around. There were only 2 or 3 items on display. Soon he found what the ghost thing was talking about, star ink stone. However, there was no label on the star ink stone, only a price. It was placed in the corner of the display. It was shaped like a black stone the size of a fist. From the outside, it looked completely unremarkable, but its price was quite shocking. 1,000 spirit jades. Compared to the other expensive items, this star inkstone with a price of 1,000 spirit jades was not only unremarkable, it also didn't seem to have any use for it. In the eyes of others, it was simply a scam. As a result, no one stopped by. But Linny knew that this star inkstone was not simple, because in the instant that he saw it, he once again felt the same throbbing in his heart. It was as if he had a telepathic connection, and the seemingly ordinary stone was constantly attracting him. Could it be that this was some sort of treasure that had been overlooked by others? Lin, he didn't quite understand. He asked the ghost thing, Senior Ghost, what use does this star inkstone have? There's no point in telling you right now. Think of a way to get it first. After saying this, the ghost thing no longer paid any attention to Lin Yi. Only Lin Yi was left staring at the pitch-black stone in front of him, completely baffled. Lin Yi rolled his eyes, somewhat speechless. Why didn't it say what use it had? It just randomly asked me to get my hands on this stone. 1,000 spirit jades. How could it be so easy to get? Thankfully, he had a cheating artifact, like the space in the jade pendant. If it were anyone else, they would have been so scared that their legs would have turned to jelly upon hearing this price. But grumbling was just grumbling. Lin Yi also knew that if he missed out on this star inkstone, he would definitely regret it in the future. Even if he didn't mention the ghost thing, just based on that strange telepathic connection just now, he couldn't let it go so easily. Lin Yi silently observed the star inkstone. At the same time, he discovered that for some reason, the inner court disciple of the soaring sky pavilion also seemed to be very interested in this star inkstone. His burning gaze seemed to want to buy it on the spot, but his expression was conflicted. It seemed that he didn't have that many spirit jades on hand. 1,000 spirit jades. Even for an inner court disciple of the 3 great pavilions, it was already a huge sum of money. It was impossible for an ordinary disciple to have so many spirit jades. Only a young master with a deep background like Su Lingchong, or a high-ranking steward who held great power within the 3 great pavilions, could possibly take out such a sum. Lin, he couldn't help but secretly let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the star inkstone's price was high enough. Otherwise, this person would have bought it first. Then, he really wouldn't know what to do. But even if this person couldn't gather so many spirit jades in a short time, he didn't look like an ordinary disciple. At the very least, he gave off a feeling that he was much stronger than someone like Meng Jueguang, who knew when he would be able to gather 1,000 spirit jades. If he wanted to obtain the star inkstone, he had to be ahead of the other party. Thus, at this moment, Lin Yi still felt a sense of urgency. Chapter 36:27. Not to mention the fact that Lin Yi wouldn't stay in the mining area for so long. By that time, the star inkstone would have already been bought by someone else. Thus, if he wanted to obtain the star inkstone, he had to think of a way to quickly earn spirit jades. It seemed that he had to find some time to test the feasibility of exchanging good jade for useless jade. Lin Yi secretly made up his mind. Apart from this, the speed at which he could earn spirit jades was too slow. Only this idea could maximize the effect of the jade space. Of course, this also had a lot of risk, so he had to test it out. Just as Lin Yi was secretly observing the star inkstone, the soaring sky pavilion inner court disciple next to him turned around to look at him. He was shocked to find that someone else knew the same thing as him, and his eyes were filled with the hostility of a competitor. However, after seeing Lin Yi's attire, this person's gaze became much more contemptuous, as if he no longer cared about Lin Yi. This wasn't strange, because in order to deceive others, Lin Yi had not only changed his face with the 1,000 silk mask, but his attire was also not the signature attire of the welcoming pavilion's new disciples, nor was it the attire of the 3 great pavilion's inner court disciples. Thus, in the eyes of bystanders, he was just a grassroots, loose cultivator, although the market square was open to all the cultivators of the northern island. Compared to the disciples of the 3 great pavilions, grassroots, loose cultivators were clearly the lowest group of people. Wanting this group of poor and shabby people to take out an astronomical sum like 1,000 spirit jades was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. This kind of person should be thanking the heavens and earth for taking advantage of the opening of the inner street to look around. Yet he still wanted to buy a treasure worth 1,000 spirit jades? Dream on. However, although he looked down on Lin Yi, this poor and shabby grassroots loose cultivator, it couldn't change the fact that this soaring sky pavilion inner core disciple was also embarrassingly poor. After greedily looking at the star inkstone a few more times, he could only resentfully turn around and leave. As he passed by Lin Yi, he said, disdainfully, "Even a toad wants to eat swan meat." There really are all kinds of people in this day and age. Looking at the man's back, Lin Yi smiled faintly and shook his head. If one day he was the first to eat the swan meat, he didn't know what kind of expression this guy would have. After visiting the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi took this opportunity to walk around the other shops in the inner street. Because he was concerned about the star inkstone, he didn't pay any particular attention to the other items. As for the heart-devouring, exquisite grass that he had previously anticipated, he couldn't find it even after searching the entire inner street. It seemed that he would have to think of a way to obtain it during the Welcome Pavilion's newcomer trial. Leaving the market square, Lin Yi returned to his immortal cave. He sorted out the 5 kinds of medicinal herbs that he had bought before and placed them next to the jade pendant medicinal cauldron. This medicine cauldron was specially made for him by Han Jingjing when he was in the secular world. As long as the medicinal ingredients were prepared and placed in it, and the true qi of a heaven stage strength was injected, it could automatically refine a 3rd-grade medicinal pill. And if the true qi of a heaven stage great perfection was injected, it could refine a 4th-grade heavenly Tao golden pill. It could be said to be a true divine tool for alchemy. Thinking of Han Jingjing, Lin Yi suddenly became a little absent-minded. She had also come to this heavenly island, but she wasn't on the northern island. At this moment, where was she? Jingjing, are you okay? Thank you for developing the automatic divine pesticide cauldron for me. Thinking of Han Jingjing, Lin Yi's gaze became resolute. For the sake of these familiar people, Lin Yi had to continue moving forward. Now that he wanted to refine the heavenly Tao golden pill, it could be said that everything was ready except for the east wind. Next, as long as he could get his hands on the heart-devouring, exquisite grass, everything would be fine. Apart from refining the heavenly Tao golden pill to increase his strength, Lin Yi's other task now was to quickly earn spirit jades. After all, that piece of star inkstone might be bought at any time. The most reliable choice was to gather 1,000 spirit jades within a month and rush to buy it on the next opening day of the inner street. Otherwise, a long night would bring many dreams. However, the matter of exchanging good jade for useless jade still had to be carefully planned. If he rashly carried it out before then, he was afraid that it might attract unexpected trouble. The next day, Lin Yi went to Jade's spirit hall to mine as usual. However, at the entrance, he coincidentally bumped into Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong. He didn't know if these two deliberately blocked the way here. Seeing Lin Yi's figure from afar, Meng Tong immediately said impatiently, "Yo, isn't this the pretentious newbie? You've only rested for a day, and your chest tightness has already recovered? Junior brother Lin Yi, if your chest is tight, I suggest you rest for a few more days." Mang Jueguang pretended to be understanding and chuckled. "Senior brother, I don't dare to say anything else, but I can still grant you a few days of leave. After all, you're our Blue Cloud Pavilion's super newbie. If you become depressed because you can't dig out any good jade, then your senior brother will have committed a great sin. Don't you think so?" Lin Yi glanced at the two of them, and a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "Thank you for your understanding, Senior Brother Meng. However, after resting for a day yesterday, I've already adjusted my luck and accumulated quite a bit of karma. Who knows, I might be able to explode today." Uft. Upon hearing this, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong both burst out laughing. Adjusted your luck? Accumulated karma? It turned out that this guy was actually an idiot. He could even say such stupid words. There was really no end to the path of idiocy. "Ha ha, I didn't expect you to have such an amazing ability. Junior brother Lin Yi is indeed a genius who can stand out in the secular world. Then go ahead and dig. Today, please show us that you have an outburst. When the time comes, I'll definitely organize all the newbies in Blue Cloud Pavilion to observe and learn from you. Let's wait and see." Mang Jueguang and his companion laughed hysterically. They almost fainted from laughing, so hard that they almost fainted. To think that the two of them had treated this idiot as their enemy. Now that they thought about it, they were simply blind. This Lin Yi, other than having good luck, was really useless. However, I, Meng Jueguang, am known as the Terminator of Luck. Let's wait and see. Then let's wait and see. Lin Yi turned around and entered mine number 10. 12 hours passed in the blink of an eye. It was time to hand over the work. Meng Jueguang had already gathered a bunch of newbies and waited at the door. Since this retard Lin Yi had taken the initiative to make a fool of himself and was eager to be abused, there was no reason to stop him. Of course, they had to cooperate fully. As usual, Lin Yi was the last to appear. When Meng Jueguang saw him, the first thing he said was, "Come, give a round of applause to our super newbie. Let him show us how he explodes today." Chapter 36:28. Meng Jueguang rejoiced inwardly. If he hadn't found someone to explore mine number 10 before, he might not have had the confidence to do so. But now he was certain that Lin Yi wouldn't be able to dig up any good jade. So, the more people who saw this, the better. He immediately said loudly, "Let me introduce to those who don't know the situation. This is our Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomer, Lin Yi. He guaranteed that he would be able to dig up good jade from mine number 10 today. If everyone has nothing else to do, please come and witness it. He can dig up good jade from mine number 10? This guy must be sick in the head." The others who were attracted snorted disdainfully. "Not necessarily. A few days ago, there was a rumor that someone dug up good jade from mine number 10, and it wasn't a small amount. Could it be this guy?" Someone in the crowd retorted. Meng Jueguang turned his head to look at that person and said with a disdainful smile, "Then, do you want to make a bet with me? If Lin Yi dug up more than 3 pieces of good jade today, I will give you 10 pieces of spiritual jades. But if he doesn't dig up 3, you don't have to give me 10 pieces of spiritual jades. Just give me 5, oh no, 3 pieces. How about it? Do you dare to make this bet?" I don't want to bet." That person immediately flinched. He had only heard about Lin Yi being able to dig up good jade from mine number 10. How could he dare to bet his hard-earned money on this bet? "TSK, since you don't have the guts, why are you so arrogant, you coward?" Meng Jueguang sneered. His words made that person's face turn red. Meng Jueguang pointed at another person beside him and said, "You, looking at your expression, you seem to believe that Lin Yi can dig up good jade. Do you want to make a bet with me?" "I don't dare." The person who was pointed at by Meng Jueguang quickly shrunk his neck, causing the others to burst into laughter. Meng Jueguang curled his lips in disdain. He then pointed at the others and said, You, and you, do you dare to bet with me? You can win 10 yuan with just 3 yuan. This is a rare opportunity. If you miss this opportunity, you won't get it again. Those who were pointed out by Meng Jueguang all became cowards, not daring to make a sound. What a joke! For miners like them, they could only earn 3 pieces of spiritual jades after a month of hard work. Who would be so stupid as to spend a month's hard-earned money on a complete stranger, Lin Yi, digging out more than 3 pieces of good jade in the 10th dead mining area? This was a bet that they would definitely lose. Whoever agreed to it was definitely an idiot, a bunch of spineless cowards. Meng Jueguang glanced around proudly, and his gaze finally fell on 2 people. He teased, Xiao Ran, Xiao Honkai, aren't you 2 Lin Yi supporters? Don't you want to bet? Don't tell me you look down on your boss, Lin Yi, and want to switch to Meng Tong's faction. Although these words were unpleasant to hear, it was still a wise choice. I won't stop you. After being called out by Meng Jueguang in front of everyone, everyone's gaze instantly focused on the 2 of them. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were at a loss of what to do. The 2 of them did not sign up to mine at the mining area, so under normal circumstances, they would not appear here. This time, it was Meng Jueguang who had specially instructed Meng Tong to call the 2 of them over, so that they could witness Lin Yi's miserable state. To put it bluntly, it was to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Since this was Meng Jueguang's order, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai naturally did not dare to disobey. Moreover, these days, Lin Yi's matter in the mining area had caused an uproar. As the saying goes, seeing is better than hearing about it. As Lin Yi's faction, it was reasonable for the 2 of them to be concerned about Lin Yi's situation. However, they did not expect such a thing to happen. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Meng Jueguang forced the 2 of them to express their stance. If they were to be like the others and say that they did not want to bet, not only would it be embarrassing, it would also make Lin Yi and even his senior brother feel disappointed. One had to know that the 2 of them were able to have their current cultivation cave abode. It was all thanks to Lin Yi's blessing. If they did not stand up to support Lin Yi now, wouldn't they be ungrateful? Could it be that Meng Jueguang said that they would really switch to Meng Tong's faction? However, if they wanted to bet, the 2 of them did not have the capital to do so. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai only had 2 pieces of spiritual jades in their hands. These were the spiritual jades that Meng Jueguang had given to them previously. They had almost used up all the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. If they lost the bet and could not take out the spiritual jades, wouldn't that be giving others a weakness? At that time, no matter how Meng Jueguang wanted to deal with them, they would not be able to say a word of complaint. Moreover, judging from Lin Yi's current situation, once they agreed to this bet, they would almost certainly lose. There was not even the slightest possibility of getting lucky. Gambling, they did not have the capital to do so. If they did not gamble, they would be ungrateful. For a moment, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were in a dilemma. Under the mocking gazes of the crowd, Meng Tong chuckled and said, Although the 2 of you are trash and even the way you look at people is a complete mess, but on account of the fact that we are fellow disciples, and on account of Ninth Cousin's face, I can reluctantly accept the 2 of you. In the future, you just have to serve me tea and water every day. Wahahaha. Serve tea and water? This was something that a small servant would do. As a dignified heaven-ranked expert, he was a powerful existence that was respected by tens of thousands of people. How could he be a servant? Moreover, it was impossible for the 2 of them to reconcile with Meng Tong. The crowd roared with laughter. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongsai's faces instantly turned red. They wanted to open their mouths to refute, but they did not know what to say. After all, they did not have the spiritual jades on hand. Even if they wanted to accept the challenge, they did not have the confidence to do so. Seeing that they were about to lose face, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were prepared to grit their teeth and endure this humiliation. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from outside. "You guys bet with him. If you lose, I will pay the spiritual jades." The crowd instantly became restless. When they saw the face of the person clearly, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai could not help but be overjoyed. On the other hand, Meng Jueguang's face suddenly turned gloomy. "I was wondering who was so arrogant. So it's Junior Brother Bitter Guy." Senior Brother Bitter Guy walked over and looked at Meng Jueguang. "Senior Brother Meng, I will pay the spiritual jades that they bet with you. There shouldn't be a problem, right?" Chapter 36-29. Fifth chapter, update complete. All right then. Senior Brother Bitter's face stiffened, although he was on Lin Yi's side. Even he did not think that Lin Yi would be able to dig out more than 3 pieces of good jade in Dead Mine number 10. Meng Jueguang's words were purely to make him lose more, and more miserably. However, even if he was not optimistic about Lin Yi, Senior Brother Bitter had no choice but to grit his teeth and agree. This was because today's matter was deliberately instigated by Meng Jueguang. It was no longer a matter of winning or losing. It had evolved into a head-on confrontation between the 2 factions of the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers. Meng Jueguang, Meng Tong, and the other newcomers were on one side. Senior Brother Bitter, Lin Yi, and Xiao Ran were on the other side. The battlefield of this confrontation was this gambling house. Under such circumstances, even if he knew that this gambling house was bound to lose, Senior Brother Bitter could only choose to lose the jade but not the face. Although losing 5 pieces of spiritual jades was painful for him, in order to maintain the confidence of Lin Yi and the others in him, he could only accept it. "Senior Brother Bitter, if we lose this time, we will definitely save up the spiritual jades and return them to you in the future." Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai looked at each other and said to Senior Brother Bitter gratefully. Although the 2 of them knew that they had no choice but to gamble in this situation, and there was a 99% chance that they would lose. No matter what, Senior Marshal Brother Bitter Corner was involved because of the 2 of them, so the 2 of them should be the ones to fork out the spirit jades. Even if they did not have enough spiritual jades now, they would be able to return them in the future. "It's meaningless for the 2 of you to say this. Even if I lose this time, it doesn't matter. No matter what, I am a steward, Senior Brother. I can still afford to lose these few pieces of spiritual jades. And then again, if you support Lin Yi, isn't that equivalent to supporting me? How can I let you pay for it?" Senior Brother Bitter smiled, but no matter how you looked at it, his smile looked bitter. 5 pieces of spiritual jades. For a low-level steward like Senior Marshal Brother, who had no other means, this was a precious savings that could only be saved up for a few months. Lin Yi could not help but feel touched when he saw the scene. A friend in need is a friend indeed. It was precisely because of this that Senior Brother, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Honkai were in dire straits. At this time, it was even more precious for them to stand up and support him. If these people had a lot of spiritual jades in their hands, it would not be strange for them to come forward and make this bet with Meng Jueguang. Just now, when Meng Jueguang was forcing Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai, Lin Yi wanted to come forward and stop him. But now that Senior Brother Bitter was here, there was no need to waste too much effort. After all, he was the person involved. He definitely knew how many good jades there were and how many useless ones. At this time, if he participated in the bet directly, he might scare Meng Jueguang away. Lin immediately smiled. Without saying anything more, he directly carried the basket and weighed it. Then he sent it to the quality inspection. Today he was destined to give these people a big surprise. Everyone was looking forward to it. Soon the quality inspection officer gave the result. Lin Yi 12 pieces of good jade, 7 pieces of useless jade, 20 pieces of garbage jade. Damn! 12 pieces of good jade. The whole place was in a complete mess, especially the confident Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong. This time they were so shocked that they almost fell to the ground. Senior Brother Ma, the prospecting expert, had clearly promised that there would at most be 30 to 40 pieces of good jade in the number 10 dead mine, and it would take at least 2 to 3 months to dig all of them out. In other words, under normal circumstances, Lin Yi would be considered lucky if he could dig out 1 piece of good jade in a day. As for digging out 3 pieces in a day, that was simply impossible. Otherwise, Meng Jueguang would not dare to open his mouth and say that the odds were 3 to 10. After that, he even set a bet of 5 to 15. He had predicted that Lin Yi would not be able to dig out 3 pieces of good jade. That was why he dared to make such a bet. In the end, he dug out 12 pieces in a day. Instantly, everyone was so shocked that they did not dare to speak. 12 pieces of good jade in a day. What kind of concept was this? Not only could this instantly beat all of the number 7 mines under Blue Cloud Pavilion, even Mysterious Pavilion's number 5 and number 6 mines would be directly overshadowed. The number 4 mine was fine, but that was already Mysterious Pavilion's best and highest quality mine. Taking in everyone's shocked and bewildered expressions, Lin Yi could not help but reveal a mocking smile. In order to verify what he had said to Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong in the morning, he had deliberately hidden 3 pieces of spiritual jade today. Only then could he justifiably dig out 12 pieces of good jade and blind everyone's dog eyes. With the previous day's fruitless results as a foundation, Lin Yi had calculated that even if he suddenly exploded today, it would not raise any unwarranted suspicions. At most, they would think that he was just as lucky as before, but this time his luck was especially explosive. Compared to the shock and bewilderment of the others, Senior Brother Bitter, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Hongkai were ecstatic. The 3 of them had originally thought that they would definitely lose this time. Senior Brother Bitter was even prepared to take out the 5 pieces of spiritual jade in his bosom. They did not expect that Lin Yi would actually give them such an incomparably huge surprise without saying a word. In this way, not only did Senior Brother Bitter not need to lose 5 pieces of spiritual jade, according to the previous bet, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai would be able to win 15 pieces of spiritual jade from Meng Jueguang. For the few of them who had long believed that they would lose, this was simply an unexpected windfall. Even if they won the lottery in the secular world, it would not be more than this. Meng Jueguang looked at the few of them who were overjoyed, and his face instantly turned extremely ugly. At this moment, he even wanted to give himself 2 slaps. Why did they make a bet with such a cheap mouth? Wasn't it a good thing to watch Lin Yi make a fool of himself? Otherwise, even if he did not watch, he would not have suffered such a huge loss. 15 pieces of spiritual jade, even for the slick Meng Jueguang. This was already a huge sum of money. If he really lost to Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, these 2 fellows whom he had always disliked, he was afraid that his liver would be in pain for the rest of the month. Let's go! Meng Jueguang quietly gave Meng Tong a meaningful look. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that everyone was still in shock to quietly slip away from the crowd. As long as he was not caught on the spot, with his convenient identity as the senior brother in charge, he could completely find an excuse to avoid this gambling debt in the future. However, Lin Yi had been staring at him for a long time. Obviously, he would not let him do as he wished. He immediately said loudly, "Senior Brother Meng, where are you in a hurry to go?" Chapter 3630. Since Senior Meng is not in a hurry to go, then please honor the bet just now. All the brothers and sisters here can be witnesses to prove that Senior Meng is a man of his word and is open and above board. Lin Yi smiled faintly. After experiencing so many things before, he and Meng Jueguang were already irreconcilable like fire and water. With such a great opportunity that was delivered to his doorstep, he naturally had to let Meng Jueguang pay. With that said, not only Senior Kubai, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Hongkai, but also the others looked at Meng Jueguang with anticipation. After all, 15 pieces of spiritual jade was not a small amount. To be able to witness this scene with their own eyes, it would be a good topic of conversation in the future. These cultivators, who led boring lives every day, always liked to watch a good show. Even if they did not participate in it personally, as onlookers they were more excited than the people involved. F***CK. This brat is really F***King treacherous. Meng Jueguang secretly cursed. After hearing what Lin Yi said, he was completely in a difficult position. According to Lin Yi's words, if he did not honor the bet now, wouldn't he be seen as a treacherous villain in the eyes of others? But this was a total of 15 pieces of spiritual jade. If he really took it out just like that, wouldn't his heart bleed in the future? Seeing that Meng Jueguang was still hesitating, Lin Yi said again, Senior Meng, don't tell me that you don't have so many spiritual jades with you? That shouldn't be the case. For someone like Senior Meng who keeps his word, since he dared to make this bet just now, he must have prepared so many spiritual jades in his pocket. Otherwise, wouldn't his words be like farts? With so many pairs of eyes watching, I think our Senior Meng would definitely not do such a stupid thing. The meaning behind his words was too obvious. For a moment, everyone looked at Meng Jueguang with a playful expression. If he continued to delay like this, he would definitely be killed. If he continued to delay like this, it would almost solidify the image of him talking like farts. If these words were spread, not to mention establishing any prestige in the future, no matter where he went, he would be pointed at. Meng Jueguang was a person who wanted to climb up. Naturally, he would not allow himself to carry such a stain. He had to bite the bullet and said, "Why are you in such a hurry? Did I say I won't give it on the spot? What a villain! But this is a mining area. My spiritual jades are all in my private workshop outside. I have to go out before I can give them to you." Everyone came to a sudden realization. Meng Jueguang's words were reasonable, given the strict supervision procedures of Spirit Jade Hall. Under normal circumstances, no one was allowed to bring anything in. Naturally, spiritual jades were included. In fact, even if they wanted to bring anything in, they would not be able to, much less bring it out. In the nature, they were equivalent to half of the staff of Lingyu Hall. Lingyu Master, Jueguang. Because they had to come here every year to help supervise the newcomers, they were equivalent to half of the staff of Lingyu Hall. Therefore, they had their own private workshop. Usually, they could rest here and also use it for storage. From Meng Jueguang's point of view, even if he really brought so many spiritual jades to Lingyu Hall, it must be stored in his own private workshop. That's fine. Anyway, it's just a few steps away. If fellow brothers and sisters are interested, please come along and witness it. Lin Yi saw through Meng Jueguang's intention at a glance and immediately shouted to the crowd. Everyone present was going out anyway. Since it was along the way, they were naturally happy to watch the show and responded with a smile. Especially those who were pointed out by Meng Jueguang, but did not dare to bet, they were especially enthusiastic. They could not wait to see Meng Jueguang vomit blood. This cunning bastard. Meng Jueguang secretly cursed. After all, there were so many people following to watch the show. Even if it was just to worry about the impact, it was not good for him to think of other means to deal with it. He could only obediently do as he was told. Meng Jueguang's private workshop was not far from the entrance. Under the supervision of Lin Yi and the crowd of onlookers, Meng Jueguang quickly came out with the spiritual jades. However, when he was just about to hand over 15 pieces of spiritual jades, the bitter senior brother on the side suddenly said, "Senior brother Meng, these should be good jades. You won't take out waste jades to fool us, right?" Meng Jueguang's heart suddenly trembled. In order to avoid vomiting blood, he deliberately took out a bag of waste jades. As long as Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai did not verify it in person, he could get away with it, just like how he deceived Lin Yi. If he was found to be waste jades after that, then he would be unscrupulous. He could completely say that the other party purposely used good jades as waste jades to frame him. At that time, everyone would have their reasons. As long as the public opinion was not one-sided, then he, Meng Jueguang, could completely ignore it. It was originally a good plan, but now that the bitter senior brother mentioned it, this matter was not easy to carry out. After all, if it was really verified to be waste jades in front of everyone, then he, Meng Jueguang, would lose all his face. Once his reputation was ruined, he would never be able to raise his head in the 3 great pavilions again. Meng Jueguang could not help but secretly think that he had miscalculated. How could he forget about the bitter senior brother? Lin Yi, that idiot, did not know how to verify spiritual jades, but the bitter senior brother was still very experienced. How is that possible? As the steward senior brother, would I do such a shameless thing? You are really gauging the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. Meng Jueguang retorted in a righteous manner. However, the hand that was reaching into his bosom to take out the spirit jades secretly trembled and replaced it with another bag of spirit jades. Fortunately, he had thought it through beforehand and prepared an extra bag of good spirit jades just in case. Otherwise, he would have really lost a lot of face this time. Under the instruction of the bitter senior brother, Xiao Ran took the bag of spiritual jades from Meng Jueguang's hand and let Xiao Honkai count them in person. After they were done, they nodded at each other. All of them were good jades, full of spiritual energy. There were 15 pieces, not one less. Senior brother Meng is indeed the steward senior brother. Every spit is a nail. You are really a role model for my generation. Lin Yi looked at Meng Jueguang with a smile that was not a smile. Meng Jueguang could not help but grit his teeth. In his eyes, Lin Yi's expression was as hateful as it could be. If it were not for the influence, he would have personally taught Lin Yi a lesson to vent the hatred in his heart. Chapter 36-31. Therefore, in the final analysis, it was always Lin Yi who made Meng Jueguang suffer. After experiencing so many things, he finally began to realize that as long as he did not kill Lin Yi, he would not have a good life. Just wait and see. Meng Jueguang gave Lin Yi a hateful stare, then led Meng Tong and the others away. Looking at this scene, senior brother Ku could not help but remind him worriedly, "Junior brother Lin, you have to be more careful in the future. Senior brother Meng has never been a person who is willing to suffer losses, especially to a newcomer like you. He will definitely think of all kinds of ways to get revenge on you. According to his usual style, he's unscrupulous. Senior brother Ku, don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Lin Yi smiled indifferently. In the face of powerful strength, all schemes and tricks were a joke. If Lin Yi's current strength of early-stage foundation establishment was not enough, then after he refined the Heavenly Path Golden Pill and advanced to the peak of early-stage foundation establishment, he could kill people like Meng Jueguang in one move. Naturally, there was nothing to be afraid of. At this time, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai discussed for a while, then handed over the bag containing 15 pieces of spiritual jade. "Brother Lin, these spiritual jade are all earned by you. Both of us think that we can accept it, so you should keep it. There are 15 pieces of spiritual jade here, and you two don't want it?" Lin Yi looked at the two strangely. Although this bet was won because of him, and there was also the factor of forcing his senior brother, the two still took a huge risk to agree to the bet. Therefore, the 15 pieces of spirit jades belonged to the two of them. There was no doubt about it. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai looked at each other and subconsciously swallowed. 15 pieces of spiritual jade. This was a huge sum of money that even a person like Meng Jueguang would feel heartache over. It would be *T to say that the two of them were not envious at all. In fact, because the two of them were on Lin Yi's side, other than Xiao Ran's cave abode at the foot of the mountain, which was not bad, other cultivation resources were specially targeted by Meng Jueguang. It could be said to be a complete mess. These 15 pieces of spiritual jades were like charcoal in a snowy day for the two of them. If everything went smoothly, it was very possible for them to succeed in building their foundation with these spiritual jades. However, although the two of them had won the 15 pieces of spiritual jades, the premise was that Senior Brother Kubai had given them the gambling capital. Moreover, Senior Brother Kubai had only stood out because of Lin Yi. In fact, if it wasn't for Lin Yi's miraculous performance, they wouldn't have been able to win. With Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongsai's temperament, even if they were tempted by the 15 pieces of spiritual jades, they couldn't just accept it with a clear conscience. The two of you don't have to be so polite with Senior Brother Kubai and me. You need these spiritual jades. If you can successfully build your foundation in the future, then it will be the best use of it, right? As for me, you don't have to worry at all. Just trust that I won't let you down. Lin Yi smiled and comforted them. Senior Brother Kubai originally wanted to ask Lin Yi and the other two to divide the spiritual jades together. However, seeing that Lin Yi was so confident, he simply said, "Yes, the two of you keep it for yourselves. In the future, don't let Junior Brother Lin's painstaking efforts go to waste." This. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai looked at each other. Seeing that Lin Yi really didn't want the spiritual jades, they could only nod and said, "All right then, I won't say any more polite words. If you need anything in the future, Brother Lin, just tell us." When saying this, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai had completely regarded themselves as Lin Yi's underlings. With their temperament, even if the 15 pieces of spiritual jades were tempting, it might not be enough to make them bow down. However, Lin Yi's performance since the first day had made the two of them sincerely convinced. They were willing to be under Lin Yi. Well said. Lin Yi smiled slightly. Although he had made enemies everywhere after coming to the Heaven Stage Island, he had unknowingly gathered a force. Senior Brother Kubai, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Hongkai, these people could be counted as his group. Their overall strength didn't seem strong, but there was still a long way to go. With Lin Yi's help, it was only a matter of time before these people grew into masters who could take charge of their own affairs. Lin Yi paused for a moment. Then he suddenly remembered something and said, "Oh, by the way, when you use these spiritual jades to cultivate, remember not to use up all the spiritual qi. Leave the last bit of spiritual qi for me. I will use it to fool people." Okay. Xiao Ran and Yi Zichen were slightly taken aback, but they didn't ask any questions and immediately agreed. On the other hand, upon hearing Lin Yi's words, the bitter senior martial brother couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. With only the last trace of spirit qi left, it would become a completely useless jade. Who was Lin Yi going to fool with this useless jade? Could it be that he wanted to cheat it from Meng Jueguang and the others? In fact, the fact that Lin Yi was cheated by Meng Jueguang with a piece of useless jade, although it hadn't been completely spread, there was still a hint of it from Meng Tong's mouth. People like Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, who stayed in the cave and cultivated diligently all day long, didn't know about it, but the bitter senior martial brother had heard about it from others. He originally wanted to ask Lin Yi about it, but he was afraid of hurting Lin Yi's self-esteem, so he couldn't say it. Therefore, he specially came to see Lin Yi today. He didn't expect to encounter the scene of the bet just now. "Junior martial brother Lin, in fact, I also have some waste jade with only the last trace of spirit qi. If you need it, I will send it to you in a few days," the bitter senior martial brother said on the side. Although it was known that waste jade with thin spirit qi had no value and could neither be used for cultivation nor for trading, but people like the bitter senior martial brother would still leave the last trace of spirit qi to preserve it, so that the spirit jade would not break directly. He didn't have any ulterior motives, but Spirit Jade Hall had a waste jade recycling regulation. As long as 1,000 pieces of unbroken waste jade were collected, they could bring it to Spirit Jade Hall to exchange for a piece of good jade full of spirit qi. It was just that it was very troublesome to do so, and the return rate was very low. So many people disdained it. After all, for the vast majority of people, they might not even have 1,000 pieces of spirit jade in their lifetime, let alone waste jade used for cultivation. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.